Donald Trump, he's given us a gift. He has ordered the firing of 6,700 IRS agents, and somehow, Democrats are angry about this, and somehow progressive activists are angry about this. Now, what I'm so just darn confused by is these far left extremists should be very happy with the destabilization or, I guess, the gutting of the federal government, right? Okay. The other story we have is a Tesla location was just shot up with stickers slapped on the window saying, well, I don't want to repeat this, but they're calling for harm to Elon Musk. And I'm just so gosh darn confused about this. The Antifa far leftists believe that the U.S. government is a fascistic terror state. And Donald Trump gets in and he's like, I'm going to fire everybody. And they're like, no, wait, don't. Elon Musk comes in. He's like, we're going to fire everybody and work with Trump. That was actually like an Elon Trump combo. And then the activists are like, they go and they shoot up a Tesla location. I got to be honest. I think these people are fascists. So we'll talk about that. Plus, Donald Trump has declared the cartels to be terrorist organizations, which opens the door for drone strikes on them in Latin American countries. Holy crap. He then called Zelensky a dictator for refusing to have elections. And the Washington Post said he called Zelensky a dictator without evidence, despite the fact the statement was literally dictator with no elections. I got to say, I absolutely love how the media has no ground left. Nothing they say makes sense. The far left activists, nothing they say makes sense. You know, during the first Trump term, at least there was some semblance of a counter argument. Trump says, I'm going to hire Bolton. The Democrats are like, no, wait, that's a really bad idea. And then some libertarians were like, we also agree. And we're like, here's this conflict. Then Donald Trump says, I'm going to fire a bunch of IRS agents. And somehow progressive activists and Democrats are all on board with the federal government now. Seems to me they have no real convictions, and Trump is exposing them for who they are. We're going to get into all that, my friends. But before we do, we got a great sponsor, probably the best possible sponsor for this story. It's Tax Network USA. The IRS is the largest collection agency in the world. And with April 15th fast approaching, it's more aggressive than ever. Well, they're getting a lot of people fired. In 2025, enforcement is ramped up. And if you owe back taxes or have unfiled returns, waiting is not an option. The longer you do, the worse it gets. Ignoring your tax troubles is the worst thing you can do. April 15th marks another tax year that's passed you by. Getting ahead of this now is the smart move, but never contact the IRS alone. Instead, let the experts at Tax Network USA handle it for you. Why? Because not all tax resolution companies are the same. Tax Network USA has a preferred direct line to the IRS, meaning they know exactly which agents to deal with and which to avoid. With proven strategies to settle tax problems in your favor, whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, Tax Network USA's attorneys and negotiators have already resolved over $1 billion in tax debt. Talk with one of their strategists today. It's free. Stop the threatening letters, stop looking over your shoulder, and protect yourself from property seizures and bank levies. Don't let the IRS control your future. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Tim. That's TIM. April 15th, just around the corner. Act now before the IRS acts first. And I also want to mention, too, I have personally recommended them to some of my friends who are dealing with tax issues, too. So special thank you to Tax Network for sponsoring the show. Really do appreciate it. And also, if you guys head over to rumble.com/Timcast IRL, take a look at the playlists and then take a look at Game of Money. Jump to minute 19 and 19 seconds. And there's 25-year-old me hanging out in New York City in this feature documentary, Game of Money, with my buddy Harrison. So we got a couple feature-length documentaries you can check out at Rumble Premium. Of course, after this show, we have the uncensored call-in show up. So that's going to be available for all Rumble Premium users at rumble.com/Timcast IRL. We've got delicious coffee at castbrew.com. Stock up if you haven't already. I can't stop selling Ian's. Ian's just selling all this coffee. It's crazy. You can buy Ian's Graphene Dream. You can also go to boonieshq.com and pick up the 28th Amendment skateboard, the right to keep, bear, and breed chickens, which also is interpreted to mean you have the right to grow your own food. And I absolutely do believe in that message. Don't forget to smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Chloe Cole.
Hi.
Who are you? What do you do?
I primarily speak on the gender issue and I advocate for the protection of children and vulnerable people from irreversible and harmful gender transition treatments. And this mainly comes from my own experience as somebody who's been through the system myself as a child.
Interesting. And another story we do have, RFK Jr. has just announced, as per HHS guidelines, woman is adult human female. So this is this is pretty interesting. So thanks for hanging out. Should be interesting. We have Elaad hanging out.
Hey everybody, what's up? My name's Elaad. I'm a journalist here at Timcast. Chloe, it's so nice to have you on tonight. I've been following your story for years, and I'm happy to see the tide finally turn on this issue, especially with Trump coming into office. And we'll dive into that a little bit more later. What's up, Raymond?
Hey, bud. Good to see you here. I'm looking forward to talk to my first neocon. What's up, guys? It's Raymond G. Stanley Jr. I work here. I do good things. I'm blue collar, a U.S. Marine Corps veteran. But I also want to shout out Mr. W. David Lilly. He painted a beautiful painting of Roberto Jr.
How dare
I know,
Bro. Thinnest of ice now. Thinnest of ice.
My apologies.
Rest in peace,
R.I.P.
Roberto Jr.
R.I.P. Sir. Phil.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary. Let's go.
Here's the story from The Independent. IRS to fire 6,700 staff in Trump and Musk's Doge purge.
Let's go.
I love how they call it that. Weeks before deadline to file taxes. I'm begging you, liberals, stop. It's the IRS. Nobody likes them. Why do you keep trying to make them likable? They're saying right before you have to file your taxes. Yeah, well, they're the reason we're stressed about our taxes in the first place. I got to tell you, the worst thing, what the worst thing is when you're running a business? See, when y'all get your W-4s or
W-2s.
W-2s?
Yeah.
You get those like in January or whatever, if you got a good company, you can file your taxes right away. I remember back when I was just doing W-2, I get my forms and I'm like, I'm going to file right away and get it over with. I want my refund. Running a business, it's always down to the very last day because you've got all these different accounts. You've got all of these different invoices. You're chasing after everything. They're trying to collect everything. And then we're sitting here being like, we've got to wait 4 months. And then as business owners, we don't get refunds. We get to learn how much more we have to give the government. To be fair, I guess it's better that we didn't overpay them, but it's absolutely fascinating. Donald Trump, Elon, and Doge are making this move. They're targeting 6,700 probationary employees, and Independent says in the middle of tax season, they're trying to somehow turn this into a bad thing for all of you. I find it to be absolutely silly, but once again, I will reiterate, please, Democrats, do not stop doing this. I want to win the midterms.
I mean, the fact that the Democrats are siding with big government isn't a surprise. They have long denied it and said, no, we're not. We just want to be compassionate, blah, blah, blah. They have consolidated power in the government and they don't want to give it up. They like the fact that, organizations like USAID were funneling money to their favorite NGOs to push their political agendas on the backs of all Americans. I don't know how I'm not sure how the average person is going to
any sane person is going, wow, that's really great. Thank you.
I listened to this show called there's this platform called 2-Way. It's got this guy Mark Halperin that used to be on MSNBC, and Sean Spicer's on his show a lot, and he gets a lot of like normie people that are looking to avoid the partisan stuff that happens a lot in most news outlets. And to listen to people talk about Musk and the stuff that he's doing, there are still a lot of people that are very plugged into the propaganda from the standard news media.
Well, I know Elaad is a big fan of the IRS.
No, I am not a big.
Well,
what do you mean?
Can't afford that mustache, that Bolton-esque mustache.
Well, but how are you going to fund your wars?
We fund our.
I got you.
Our wars. Good question. Well, through the trade that our military is able to facilitate. I guess.
Wait, what do you mean? What?
Because our Navy is what allows free trade to happen on planet Earth. So without our
wait, are we charging people for that?
No, I don't think so.
Should we?
Yeah, we should. Maybe.
Okay.
Or we should actually use that influence to get countries to do what we want them to do, which is what we do.
They got to pay. I mean, with the Panama Canal, they should be paying. We built it. It's American. And now the Northwest Patches is coming. The U.S. definitely wants to control that. But yeah, maybe we got to stop doing all this work for free around the world. You know what I'm saying? Maybe we get rid of the income tax. We go with tariffs, and we go with control of these canals that we built.
maybe if we fire these 6,700 staff from the IRS, the West Virginian tax officials won't come after me from trying to pay tax in multiple states.
Wrong.
Trying to get me to pay.
So that's a whole other component of the West Virginia ridiculousness, is that they're trying to require out-of-state residents to pay taxes in the state because they sold a product to the state. It's absolutely insane. I don't want to just keep going over and over on that story though, but it's almost like the government is broke and they're desperately trying to squeeze as much money out of you as possible. Now let's just go back in time a little bit. Remember when the Democrats hired 87,000 IRS agents?
Yep.
Yeah, and then they started tracking any purchase or transaction $600 or over. They're trying to tax the poor, and they
are trying to tax the poor. The IRS has come out and said that taxing the poor is more effective than going after the rich because the rich can afford to fight in court. If you're going after a rich guy for $2.5 million of unpaid taxes, he will absolutely blow $1 million taking you to court, and the government's got to that's money the government has to spend. They're not going to get the money out of. The guy's going to drag it out as long as possible. Because if the government were like, "Hey, we're after you for $1 million," and I had the money for it, I'd be like, "Well, I'll spend $999,999 to make sure that you don't do that."
And it's particularly the probation folks. He's been firing folks who have been probation for the government service.
Yeah, they're new.
Years. That's all it is.
Goodbye.
That's the same thing.
Well,
sorry, folks.
Chloe, you're not a like heavy news, culture, and conflict commentator. So I feel like the IRS stuff is probably outside your wheelhouse.
Yes, like I'm slowly moving that in that direction, but this is like kind of foreign to me.
Perfect. Do you like the IRS?
Not really.
All right. You see, that's the point. So I'm glad you're here because we can, like all of us, we sit here, we read or watch the news all day, every day. We deal with, filing our taxes. You're in this regard, I know like you're a specialist in a specific cultural area, but in this regard, you're more of a layman. And if you don't like the IRS, then I am right.
No one likes the IRS. I don't know any American that
Let me
really
steel
loves
man,
the IRS
I think
except
this
for-
argument, I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think the argument goes along the lines of because it's the most difficult to tax and follow up with the highest earners who are able to avoid the taxes in the most lucrative ways, that we need all of these people, and that the tax revenue that they will bring in will out earn the kind of cost that it costs to employ these people. Is their argument.
But then the argument that they make, we need to get the billionaires and millionaires to pay their fair share. That's BS right off the start. Like, it's a non-starter. We need to have these 87,000 agents so they can go after the millionaires and billionaires, blah, blah, blah. But then the IRS itself says we don't go after those people because it's not worth the effort. So they're actually hiring those people to go after the regular people.
Right now, I guarantee you, Democrats and liberals are probably making YouTube videos where they're like, Elon Musk is firing IRS agents so that he and his crony buddies don't have to pay taxes. Let me just explain something. It takes one IRS agent to handle an account of a billionaire. Now, if they want to do a full audit and go through everything, it's going to take a lot more agents than that. But the decision to target an individual and look at their general finances is not the most complicated thing in the world. What's impossible for the IRS is to go after 3 million individuals. Let me put it this way. One billionaire, as Phil already pointed out, and we as a corporation, and every corporation deals with this, if the IRS comes to you and says, we think you owe X amount of dollars, you look at your tax lawyer and you say, do we owe that? And if they say no, say, okay, it's going to be cheaper for my tax attorney to deal with this. Or, you call Tax Network USA for it. That's a really good example. That's why I said we have like the best possible sponsor for tonight's show. Imagine you owe $10 million, like they said in the ad. It's not going to cost you that much to call Tax Network and have them resolve, Tax Network USA, and have them resolve your issue. The IRS is going to waste their time. They're going to say, they're going to cave. They're going to be like, okay, fine. They're going to send their 6,000 agents after 6,700 people. And not just that, 6,700 agents, each one of those agents can probably send a letter to 50 people. And that's just in what, like 1 week? How many letters I got to send out? So if they're going over all these accounts and they're like, look, I've got 10,000 people that each own an average of $10,000. It's like, oh, wow. Well, now we're talking about large stacks of cash, but you need a lot of people to go after it. Go after a billionaire. He's going to fight you tooth and nail. I think it's actually probably easier to explain like this. If a billionaire owes $10 million, he will spend $9 million to save that extra million. good luck in court. If a regular person owes $10, he's sending you $10 with no fight. So if you can get as many people as possible to send you $10, none of them will fight it. That's what the IRS is all about. That's what they're doing. And I don't care if they're probationary or otherwise, and I don't care what they were doing. Fire them all as far as I'm concerned.
And the billionaires, the rich folks, they know the loopholes. They can get away. What?
It's let me explain it like this. I don't actually think it's fair necessarily to call them loopholes. Before I owned a business with a lot of employees, loophole seemed to make sense.
Yeah.
When you actually get into all of the taxes, there's no loopholes. There's literally just what the law is. Because the IRS agents know exactly when and when not a billionaire is going to pay. It's not a loophole. They're just like, oh, you don't got to pay taxes on this for this thing. So the way it's phrased by activists, particularly on the left, they're like, billionaires use loopholes to not pay taxes. And I'm like, when you claim Amazon paid no taxes, what you're basically saying is that they reinvested the funds or their margins were slim and reinvested. The IRS knows that. So it's not a loophole. It's literally the purpose of tax law. So the funny thing I hear from a lot of people is that if we lower taxes, you'll create more jobs and things like that. And that's technically true, but technically not true. There's a happy medium and you have to know where it is. So if I was told, hey, they're increasing the corporate tax rate to 70%, I'd be like, wow, okay, well we better reinvest that as much as we can. So what would we do here? We'd hire as many people as we could because we're going to lose all that money if we don't. So it's not necessarily true that lower taxes means more hiring or the other way around. It just really depends. But you'll hear from a lot of these activists. They will say whatever they need to say to confuse you. They will say billionaires don't pay taxes because it's a loophole. And I'm like, no, Elon Musk isn't paying billions of dollars in taxes because he doesn't actually have cash. That's not a loophole. Okay, well, he made X amount of profit last year. And I'm like, and it's locked up in stock. Stocks.
We don't have to call it a loophole, but it is a sort of workaround that is an issue with the ultra wealthy. And well, whatever there are laws created that allows them to pay much less than even an ordinary person does in taxes. And I'll explain to you how it goes. I'm not talking about Amazon, the corporation, but Jeff Bezos, for example, was famously paid something like only $83,000 while he worked there, but the shares and his net worth was a lot higher than that. So while he was paying a lower marginal tax, his net worth was like in the hundreds. I understand it's not cash, but
all right, hold on. You want to play a game?
No. I don't support this, and I don't even support a wealth tax, but I'm saying these are ways
it's not a loophole.
It's just
there
a generic
laws,
term.
There are laws made for the ultra wealthy that it allows them to pay less taxes than a much poorer person.
That's absolutely not true.
Which part of it isn't
absolutely not true? First of all, the wealthy pay substantially more taxes on average than if you look at the curve, it's a parabolic curve. The higher the income, the more taxes they pay. In total, I think what is it like? The top 1% pay something like 47% of all taxes.
Jeff Bezos
Jeff Bezos pays the same income tax that every American pays. He then pays capital gains tax, and the activists argue that capital gains should be income, and that by not paying the same amount on capital gains as you do on your income, that's a loophole. That's not correct.
Well, as I understand, he hasn't sold a lot of his stocks when he was
allowed
to. Well, when he was employed there.
First of all,
now he has.
Stock is not cash and can't be spent.
Yep.
So you can't claim that he should be taxed on something that's not money. But let's play this game. I have in my hand a tech deck fingerboard that I put together myself. Now, how much do you think someone will be willing to pay for Tim Pool's fingerboard that he actually uses during the show and does ollies with? What do you think?
$350.
$350? Okay.
$5.56.
It's now Elaad's. Elaad, you got to pay the government $100 taxes income because I gave you that. Simply by that being yours, that was cash, that was a transaction, that's how the taxes work. You now owe money on that. That's income.
I guess I'd be in the hole. But Tim, let me ask you. So Jeff Bezos was getting paid $80,000 a year while he was the CEO of Amazon, and he was worth something like hundreds of millions of dollars because of Amazon stock and billions. It depends on
not cash and can't be
I understand. Do you think he should only owe taxes on
Yes.
83? Calm down, Phil. So you think Jeff Bezos should only owe whatever?
Okay, Elaad, how would he pay taxes on money he doesn't have?
I just think there's that's the workaround. So if you have above a certain amount, I think people argue that you should be forced to sell a small amount.
Oh my God, Elaad, please.
That's the argument. That's not what.
Elaad, stop. Just stop. Calm down. Let me explain. If Jeff Bezos could, which he legally can't because there's fiduciary responsibility to a company, meaning, one, he has a contract that bars her from selling stock, okay, unless a certain threshold of stock value is met. Two, if he dumps stock, the stock price collapses and it could cause the company to spiral into a free fall. The stock is used to generate revenue for the company to operate if they're not generating substantial revenues. So if Jeff Bezos was ordered by the government to violate his contract and sell stock so that he could cover the wealth tax they put on it, the company would enter free fall. Everyone would dump the stock overnight. It would become worthless. And then paradoxically, Jeff Bezos' net worth would be $100 million. And then he wouldn't owe those taxes in the first place.
The issue at hand here is that there's clearly an issue with how we're taxing people like this. If you think Jeff Bezos should only owe money on his $83,000 of income while he was working there and not anything on any of the hundreds of millions of dollars that he had in stock and net worth, there's a serious issue there because there are people who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars who are again paying more than Jeff Bezos was at the time.
I gotta stop
and if you don't think there's any issue with somebody like that paying significantly less than again like people like millionaires, people making millions.
I'm going to mute you if you just keep ranting and saying wrong things over and over again. He did not make cash. There's no income.
I said his net worth.
His net worth is paper that exists in a nebulous concept in the mind. Do you know what paper value means?
How much is Jeff Bezos worth?
I think it's $170 billion.
Okay, and when he was CEO of Amazon, what does net worth mean?
What does net worth mean?
It means your culmination of your assets.
Okay, and where does the value of those assets come from?
The demand for them.
And what happens if the government says we are seizing your stock?
The stock value will go down.
And then what does he owe? Nothing?
He'll owe some. The issue is that he should be paying more. The amount
more. What? He has no cash.
Okay, bro. I think he's purposefully setting up his assets in such a way that this will be the net result. And this is what people are talking about when people like Raymond were saying the loophole.
If he
this
sells
is the loophole.
Stock,
the loophole is the laws that...
If he sells the stock, he has to pay on the gain, on the realized gain of all of the cash he brings in.
Sure, but Tim, you understand that he's purposefully taking a low... He was taking a low... income on purpose. He was taking a low salary on purpose to be able to affect this loophole, and that is the issue at hand. No, he purposefully set it up this way so he would
fundamentally misunderstand how any of the corporate structure works in this country. Let's try this. Let's slow down. What is a C corp?
There's like a C corp and an S corp. I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't know the exact.
You don't know why they exist. Okay,
one's for an individual, I believe, and one's for a group. You could go ahead.
Right. So the issue here is, if you don't understand something as basic as like they have B corps now, LLCs, an S corp technically is an LLC, a C corp is as well. There's special classifications. If you don't know what those mean, that's 101. Okay. So if you look to a CEO who's running a company and then you go, he should pay money on money he doesn't have, is what you're saying, because the company he runs is worth a lot of money. We have a problem here where logic has failed. My point is, let's start with, you don't even know what a C Corp is, so let's not play the game of you think Jeff Bezos intentionally took an action to obfuscate his wealth and avoid paying taxes.
You don't think that's what he's doing here?
No.
Oh, that he did? Okay. Then
that is applying malintent to a man who is probably just abiding by tax law as he's instructed by his lawyer.
In order to achieve what? The loophole.
It's not a loophole when you are doing what the law tells you have to do.
Well, I think it's a distinction without a difference. They set up the law in such a way to act as a loophole. There's a loophole.
An individual is doing something maliciously, whereas what's actually happening is he called his lawyer and said, "How am I supposed to do this?" And they said, based on U.S. tax code 531C, you have to do this, you have to file this, and you have to pay yourself this. When I first started this company, my accountant told me, "Here's the range at which you can pay yourself." I said, "Okay. Then I'll just choose a number." We have profits for this company. Profits taxed at a lower margin than employment. So CEOs want to pay themselves less, but there's an expected market value. Here's another thing I don't think you understand. We cannot pay people above market rate. You can try to justify it. You're opening yourself up to an audit. I go to my accountant and I say, "Hey, we got this guy. He's a big talent. I want to pay him, $1 million." They say, "What's his job?" "Oh, he's a musician." They'll say, "Do session musicians get paid $1 million?" "Not often." "Okay, you're going to have to justify to the IRS when they audit you why you're paying someone so high above market. You shouldn't do that." I say, "Oh, See, because the tax code works like this, okay? It's not a loophole when the government passes a law that makes you do these things. The loophole is a term used by activists to go after people who are wealthy and claim they're doing something maliciously when they're doing what they're contractually obligated to do or what the government requires them to do. If the law exists and is solidified, and then a company forms and they say, how do we create a pay structure for the person who runs this company? Well, based on the law, we have to do these 10 things. Okay. And then you come out and go, aha, he's cheating by using a loophole. And he's like, what do you mean? The law was there before we started the company, and my lawyers told me that's how I had to do it.
I think there's an issue with the way our laws in this country are set up to tax, in particular, the ultra wealthy, the top 100, which are in a different scenario than even the top 10,000 people. So there's an issue.
So you're more like a communist.
No.
Elaad,
Well, hold on. You think we should tax people on cash they don't have because there is an ascribed market value in the imagination?
I don't know the exact solution for how to tax people who are in the top 10 amount of wealth, but if you look at the amount they pay compared to the amount that the top 10,000 earners
higher.
The top 10 have worked.
You are wrong. It is substantially higher.
what you're talking about,
my understanding it's not.
what you're talking about would mean that people that are pensioners that are on fixed income.
I'm talking about top teners.
Stop talking over people. Let me finish, because what you're talking about is talking about taxing unrealized gains. Is that?
I don't know how else to explicitly say. I'm talking about the top earners and top net worth individuals in our society.
Elaad, the method.
That's who I'm talking about.
Elaad, stay with me here. The method to do what you're.
Phil, you could have carve-outs. If we're talking about specific people, we could have the law set up in a way.
Pensioners
already.
Here's a Jeff Bezos law and an Elon Musk law and you're an insane person.
Let's just rein it in. Elaad votes.
What?
Well, I abstained because I try to have
thank God,
journalistic integrity. But if we do want to wrap it back around to this Doge story, I think it's interesting which stories what news stories of Doge cutting we choose to pay attention to, because on the left they'll focus on stories like, in the middle of Africa they're cutting healthcare that saved tens of thousands of Africans, and then they talk about that, and they talk about how they're cutting different park funds. Yes.
I drew you a picture. Maybe
the picture. Zoom in more.
Maybe the picture can help.
Vision.
This is a graph made by ChatGPT of total taxes paid by income bracket. Why? That's interesting. Total real taxes paid in billions by income bracket, and somehow the wealthiest individuals are paying the overwhelming majority of all taxes.
What percent, I can't see the number, is the wealthiest?
It's not percent, it's $1 million plus.
Okay, I'm talking about the top net worth individuals,
Elaad,
which are different than the top 1%.
That's included. What was Bezos' income per year? Was it 1 million?
No,
was it 1 million?
It was less, but his net worth was in the hundreds of millions.
Elaad, it was $1 million.
Okay.
It was 1 million.
So if you look for a more specific graph,
what's 12 divided by 1? What's 1 million divided by 12?
You tell me.
Is it around $80,000?
Okay, Tim.
Jeff Bezos was intentionally paying himself $1 million, plus he was getting an additional $1 million in benefits. Okay. He was getting a $1 million bonus plus $1 million salary.
This isn't talking about the specific details that I'm trying to explain to you guys about top net worth individuals that are getting bumped into the top 1%.
Everybody understands that you want taxes that are specific to the individual. You just said that.
You must not hear. I'm talking about the top 100 net worth individuals who have completely unique situations.
You're not articulating yourself clearly.
Wait,
you're saying just said unique situations. That means you want targeted taxes.
So Jeff,
let me finish so I can make sure that I understand. For specific people that make an amount of money that you deem as enough, you want specific tax law for individuals specifically because they make too much. That's unconstitutional, you psychopath. That's unconstitutional.
Yeah. We have a progressive tax law already,
you
and
want
it's not
you want tax law aimed at people that will make people
No. We're going to move on. Okay. We're going to go to the next story, but I'm going to say this. Elaad is simply just trying to say anything that gives him the correct position in the argument, even though nothing he said has even aligned with anything he said prior. Right? You just keep changing what you're saying.
No, you guys just aren't listening to what I'm saying. There's specific. I believe in a progressive tax rate, and specifically
let's go one point at a time. What is a progressive tax rate?
The more income that you have, the higher income that you have, the higher percentage that we tax you at.
And how does a progressive tax rate work?
the more income that you earn, there are different brackets. So let's say if you earn, I don't know, up to 50K, it'll be something like 15 to 20%. Then you go to 100K, it'll go up to like 20, 200K, 25. The issue is when
So are you
these,
saying that if you pay 100K, you would have to pay 30,000 in taxes, but if you paid 50K, you'd pay 5,000 in taxes?
the issue is with the top individuals that I'm talking about specifically that don't pay taxes in a normal way.
And what does that mean, a normal way?
So again, people like Jeff Bezos, where their net worth is bound up in, again, one of some of the biggest companies in the world right now.
Do you have stock?
Yes, I do have stock.
Are you paying taxes on that stock?
When I sell, I do.
Oh, so Jeff Bezos should have to pay when he doesn't sell because
No,
it's
but
different from
see,
you?
Tim, here's the issue. I'm not comparable to Jeff Bezos in any way. It doesn't make sense to tax me in any similar way that you're going to tax Jeff Bezos.
So you're
somebody who has
okay, all right,
hundreds of
slow down,
millions in
slow down.
stock. Yeah,
'Cause
but
you're
that's my
ranting.
point.
Slow down. Okay, let's try this again. So you're saying that at a certain level of imagined wealth, that's what it's called, imaginary wealth. It's not there's real wealth and then imaginary. The value of stock is considered imaginary, and that's the actual term. So you believe that there should be a law that states at a level of imaginary wealth, we should take cash from you, real wealth.
So I'm not sure about the specific mechanisms of how the laws will be set up. I think there are issues with how we tax our top net worth individuals in this country. And I think that's plain and obvious.
What issue?
That they pay less than the people.
Well, hold on. I showed you the graph. They don't pay less. They
All
pay
right. So
more.
again, I was telling you, this graph isn't specific enough. So the top 1% is over inclusive to like the top income earners in our country. So within the 1%, there's a 1% issue of the 1%ers.
Elaad, you need to slow down. We don't need a higher bracket than $1 million income per year to show that the bracket of 1 million up to infinity pays substantially more taxes than all other income brackets. Despite the fact they make up 1% of tax of the tax base, they are paying somewhere around 60% of all taxes.
I think within the 1%, the 99% pays more, a lot more. The 1% of the 1% isn't paying their fair share, I guess.
That is incorrect.
Well, that's your opinion.
It's not an opinion. That's a fact.
You know that Elon.
Do you know what do you pay, like 70 billion or something? Or
Elon
7
Musk
billion?
paid more taxes than any other human in history. In I think it was 2021 or 2022. He the impression that you have, Elaad, the impression that you have is not actually reflected.
Yeah, I think you have a misunderstanding.
11
of
billion.
how
I
much-
literally tried to articulate your argument back to you, but you were too busy talking over me.
We're
I
gonna
just don't
go to
think
the
you
next. We're gonna go to the next story. I'll just wrap up by saying Elon Musk paid $11 billion cash taxes in 2021.
How much? 11 billion?
11 billion, more than any other person in human history. Okay, so your talking points are progressive leftist activist talking points. They're incorrect, but we're going in circles. Let's jump to the story from Yahoo.com. Salem police investigate shooting at Tesla dealership. Heavens me. Elon Musk over here paying $11 billion in taxes in 2021, and activists are trying to take his life. Take a look at this story. Salem police are investigating a Wednesday morning shooting that damaged windows at a Salem Tesla dealership. Police responded to reports of damaged windows at the dealership at about 5 a.m., according to spokesperson Angela Hedrick. Officers found what appeared to be damage from gunshots, she said. They said no arrests have been made, and the incident remains an active investigation. Well, we do have this tweet from Nick Sorter, who says the showroom was shot up in Oregon. The second criminal incident at this location in recent weeks. The first was an arson attack on January 20th. This is a result of Democrats and legacy media calling Elon Musk Hitler. He says someone is going to get killed. Also, this month, protesters put stickers on the windows of another Tesla showroom in New York saying, calling on people to harm Elon. I don't want to read what it says. This needs to stop. Authorities need to make very clear example out of these criminals. This is what happens when people fundamentally misunderstand how the government works, how paying taxes works. These people, in their minds, believe that Elon doesn't pay any taxes, that he's exploiting and ripping off his workers, and that now he's going and stealing your private data from the government. It has radicalized people to the point where they are shooting up Tesla dealerships. So let me just make sure I iterate this before. I know, guys, I'm ranting, but these people are so psychotic. They would threaten the lives of floor salespeople who probably make $60,000, $70,000 a year at a local car dealership. That's how insane they are.
Yeah, and this is the same, like the mindset of, oh, these billionaires don't pay enough money. That's how you get a dude that's worth $40 million killed. The CEO of the healthcare company, he got shot in the back because the rich don't pay their fair share, and the healthcare companies are taking advantage of us, even though the issue at hand is that there is the government in between people and their actual healthcare, right? The fact that there's insurance that has to be, you have to use insurance to be able to afford health insurance because there's to be able to afford healthcare because there's no actual market. And the idea that the rich are the reason why people are poor, which you hear frequently, the idea that there is a fixed pie that everyone has to go and get their money from, as opposed to when a new product is invented or there's an innovation in the market that actually grows the pie. Those two ideas are conflicting. It is not true that there is a fixed amount of money to be shared amongst everybody. And the best evidence of that is the iPhone. Before the iPhone was invented, before the iPhone came onto the market in 2007, there were smartphones and there were things that did what the iPhone did, but it was not ubiquitous the way the iPhone was in just a few years, and that's because the revolution in interface that the iPhone was for a smartphone made everybody feel like they needed one, and it made the actual industry grow.
Well,
Apple became a much larger country.
Luxuries become requirements as things get normalized.
The point that I'm making is that innovation drives the size of the pie everyone's going for. It's not that the pie is fixed. The pie does grow when you have innovation in a market.
So the issue we have here, it's fascinating. Like, Elon is trying to find and gut the bloat in government. He's talking about, I think they said they saved $55 billion already, which could be a couple $100 per person already in this country. And the left, the Democrats, the media are claiming that Elon is trying to steal your private data. Despite the fact that Elon Musk owns X and already has the private data of hundreds of millions of individuals, what is it, like 200 million people, and also ran PayPal and had everyone's private data. And my favorite part of the story is that the government agencies and the people there already have your private data. So if John Smith is a raging Trump supporter and working in the Treasury Department, you don't care. But if Elon Musk wants to send in a couple of IT guys to go through the numbers and do an audit, now you're concerned about someone taking your private data. This is catastrophizing. It's hysteria. It's intended to protect the machine state. Because I will stress this. USAID, these other government institutions dumping money into D.C. And by the way, we have a story for you for today where criminal lawyer, fraud, suicide are all trending in Washington, D.C. Google Trends. The people who live there are searching these things. It's horrifying. I hope everyone's okay. But after Trump said we're going to cut out the fraud, a lot of people started doing searches for things about self-harm. That's insane. Really? Yes. And I've got the graph. We'll pull it up in a little bit. Elon Musk says, let's go find the fraud. And then the machine says, Elon is evil. Stop him. And now people are shooting up and vandalizing Tesla locations. I remember back during Occupy when they smashed up a Bank of America window right next to Zuccotti Park. And I asked them, why did they smash the windows? And they said, so that we can teach Bank of America a lesson. And I said, and what lesson do you think you taught them? And they were like, that we are not going to remain silent. And they're this close to violence. And I said, do you think anyone in any capacity of management, senior leadership, executive management, or on the board knows you broke that window? And they were like, I don't know. And I'm like, I'll tell you who knows you broke the window. It's the guy who works in there for $40,000 a year who walked into his office and found glass all over his desk. You think that guy is going to like you, adhere to your cause? And he's in the same income bracket as you. Why did you smash up the Starbucks window? Same reason. I said, do you think any of these $12 an hour Starbucks employees understand your message? All they know is they showed up for work and the boss said, we're closed today. The window's been smashed. And they said, but bro, I need the hours. And the boss said, sorry, we can't do anything about it. Looks like no one's working today. And now the dude's not going to be able to pay his car bill. The things these people do is unhinged, and it's because they are very low order thinkers. They don't understand how taxes work. They don't understand. And I'm going to say this too. I'm going to throw it to you guys. The most important thing about Elon's business, Amazon's business, and paying taxes and employment is that businesses do what the government requires they do. And most people don't know this, but usually when your company has a policy that you hate, it's because the government makes them do it. That and insurance companies.
Yep.
But you're sitting there being like, why do we have to do these stupid sexual harassment seminars? Man, my company's lame. Well, the government makes them do it. The government has a law called the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which talks about discrimination. And if you act in any way against it, you'll be sued into oblivion. And so the insurance companies then say, we won't accept liability unless you enact these things because the law says you can't. And they go, I guess we have no choice. And here we are with them saying, Elon and the billionaires, Bill Burr calling for, look at this, Bill Burr comes out and he called for the death of billionaires. And now we have this stuff targeting Elon Musk. Yeah. These, you know what it is, man? You said earlier that these people think that billionaires are only rich because they're taking from the poor.
Yeah.
It's actually the other way around. Poor people's standard of living increases exponentially when wealthy people develop things.
Yes.
And let me just pause right there and not say it is not that you are inherently wealthy that makes you a good person. There are heirs to great fortunes who have done nothing for society. And there are people who make money off of day trading and they're not really doing anything other than ripping and extracting from the market. But Elon Musk has satellites with low latency internet that can broadcast almost everywhere in the world. Now phones are attaching to them and we can get cell signal anywhere. He makes electric cars, which all the climate change people should be cheering for. And he's working on space technology, which has reduced the cost of satellite launches and space travel substantially. Elon Musk then purchased Twitter, turned it to X, increased the amount of free speech, decreased the amount of censorship, far from perfect. He's certainly done a tremendous amount of good. In fact, he doubled the margins of Twitter. The Democrats like to say, and the liberals like to say, X is worth nothing. Remember, it was worth 44 billion when he bought it. Now it's worth 7. Well, the reality is, I believe it was the Wall Street Journal came out with a report saying, actually, his costs were cut in half, and the margins doubled. Theoretically, the company's worth substantially more now because they're turning more profit despite a lower revenue. He got rid of that overhead. Elon is doing tremendous work. It's working out very well. He is generating wealth and jobs. And through his leadership, many other people are able to live better. Not all rich people are good. Not all poor people are good. But some and many rich people who are leaders of industry who work relentlessly and run their companies make it possible for other people to have jobs which allow their standard of living to increase. Hence, your dental care today is better than Rockefeller's was at the turn of the century.
Mm-hmm. And it's great that you mentioned dental care and stuff because the industries that don't have the government involved in them on a regular basis when it comes to health care or people's bodies or whatever, your plastic surgery, things like LASIK surgery for your eyes, rhinoplasty, which is plastic surgery, dental work, all that stuff. Those tend to get cheaper as time goes on because of innovation and the market. The things that don't get cheaper are the things that are necessary care that you have to have insurance for. So it should be cheaper to set a broken bone nowadays than it was 100 years ago, right? It should be cheaper.
You would think so.
You would think it would be cheaper and easier nowadays with all the technology and stuff. It's not. And it's not because there is no market. The cost of the cost of medical care isn't. They don't share it with the consumer, so the consumer can't say, "Well, I'm going to go to someone else who will do it cheaper." You need markets to drive prices down because that competition is one of the things that makes things get better.
Let's give a real great example. Amazon wanted to open a factory or warehouse or whatever in New York. They said over 10 years, we expect to generate $30 billion in revenue. We'll be providing 100, or was it like 10,000 jobs or something like that? So this means the people in New York are going to have jobs. The city of New York is going to generate $30 billion in tax revenue over 10 years. And the city said, we definitely want this. You give $1 from your company to a person, you pay employment taxes. That person buys a cheeseburger, pays a sales tax. That money goes to the government in the end. And so they were very excited. AOC began to hold rallies saying the government is letting them come here for free and giving them a cheaper tax deal. Yes, Amazon was looking for a place to set up shop. Governments were saying, we'll waive taxes of this, that, or otherwise. You come here, it'll be cheaper for you if you work here because we want the revenue, we want the jobs, we want the industry, because the industry brings wealth with it. Thanks to AOC and her ilk, Amazon decided not to do it, and it destroyed a great opportunity for the people in New York that was going to be used largely to fix their decaying subway system. See, these leftists don't understand how taxes work. She came out and said, New York is giving Amazon billions of dollars. No, it was a tax rebate. It was after they pay the taxes, they get like a rebate. So it means they would ultimately pay very few taxes if they moved there. But you see, progressive activists don't know how any of these laws work. I got to tell you, you know what's really frustrating?
What's that?
Is that people think, well, this is really funny. I tell people, like, you can't just give a family member money. It's like, I learned this the hard way. I started a company and I'm like, oh, I got some money. Like, let me, give some money to a family member. My accountant's like, that's illegal. And I was like, it is? And they're like, you can't just give money to somebody. And I was like, oh, well, so how do I buy something? They got to pay income tax on it. And I was like, my family member, if I like buy a car for a family member, it's like, yeah, they got to pay tax on it. It's income. And I'm like, okay, well, so I can't buy someone a car? Absolutely not. I said, okay, what if I like pay off their credit card? You are giving them money. I said, if I pay off their debts, yes. When someone's got $1,000 in debt and you say, I'll pay your credit card off for you, you just gave them $1,000 and that individual owes taxes on it. People don't understand how the government works. Most people get their taxes taken out of their paycheck and they never see this stuff. Then when you're running a business, you're like, someone says, I'd like a raise. Well, I can't give it to you. Why not? Because that would put you double the market rate. We're already paying you really well. And they'll say, well, I think I deserve it. I'm going to quit. It's like, okay, then do it because we're going to get audited if they find out we're paying someone at your rate. We're dealing with this stuff in West Virginia. I've been ranting about it relentlessly. We are not legally allowed to hire Elaad. How about that, Elaad?
I knew I always loved New York better than this state.
Yeah, Elaad is, we're not legally allowed to have him work here.
You're going to have the chat real excited, Tim. I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't get too into it.
It's his last show.
No.
I'm just kidding.
So
I'll still be around, guys. Don't get too excited.
But before we jump to the next story, just one final thought on this to explain how psychotic the government is and how when I'm running a business and I'm dealing with tax attorneys, corporate attorneys, and accountants, I hear about Jeff Bezos and I go, oh, so that's why he does that. Oh, so that's why they're doing that, because legal requirements put them in positions where this is how it has to be structured. Then there's corporate interests, of course, for the health of the company, fiduciary responsibility. Publicly traded companies aren't allowed to disclose information, share. It's absolutely insane. Publicly traded companies aren't allowed to take actions that would cost the shareholders money. All of this stuff is locked in by the government. So the West Virginia government told us we aren't legally allowed to buy content from Elaad. So Elaad, as an individual of his own volition, wants to go cover a news event and then asks us, hey, would you guys be interested in carrying this? And we say, yes, we're not legally allowed to do that anymore.
I don't understand the leftist talking point of Trump. He wants to cut the taxes for the rich, they say. And or like Amazon as well. They're giving Amazon a discount. Amazon's coming to New York and AOC stopped it. But people who live in New York, because of the tax break they're going to get from the government, whatever, they're going to create, 25,000 jobs. Yeah. How do they not understand that? Who cares? Amazon gets a little break.
To be completely honest,
they're going to give people jobs.
And it may be a bit disrespectful, is because arguments from like Elaad in that regard does not understand legal requirements, tax law, and the structure of how taxes and revenue is generated.
Okay, Raymond, let me explain to you part of what the issue was. It's because it's not actually real capitalism. It's crony capitalism. If you're going to get a different deal than other companies that decide to come do business in New York City, why do you have different laws? Why does Amazon have a carve out to try to entice them to come to the city? Is what the argument was. Right. So they were getting special benefits. The argument would be to entice them to come to this city over another city. But then at the end of the day, this isn't something cities should be doing to try to entice over different companies to have them come to their cities.
Why not?
Okay,
it's a huge $1 million.
Because then it's a race to the bottom, and then we don't have equal laws for all the companies.
Let's roll. Okay, so why is it that when I tweeted we were going to leave West Virginia over their insane laws, which make it so that we can't hire people like Elaad, we can't buy content from him. I don't want to say hire. Literally the dude's like, hey, I filmed this thing. Would you like to run it? I said, it's not allowed. It's not allowed. So I said, we can't operate. If I can't have a reporter who did a documentary or a video, if we can't buy the rights to that, which we literally can't under this law, then we can't operate in West Virginia. Well, this caused a huge backlash in the state.
Sure.
Several delegates from the state started reaching out to my family members. I started getting text messages.
I got a couple tell Tims.
People
from the government.
People were tweeting, the governor is trying to reach out to you. Now, why would that be the case? Because we have a large corporation that generates lots of money, and there are, in the area, the employees here pay rent. They pay property tax on the properties they own. They purchase coffee. They purchase cheeseburgers. Yep. When the people move here, when all the members of Timcast.com buy a membership, that money effectively pools in the bank accounts in West Virginia. We then use that money to pay contractors to fix toilets, to pay IT guys to set up computers, to pay journalists and reporters in New York to produce content. And then from the money we spend, in West Virginia, largely, it creates ancillary economic boons. So the state says, we need this industry in our state. We need more industry because that means the guy who is a pizza maker, he's running a pizza shop in West Virginia for 50 years. All of a sudden, there's 73 new people living in the area who moved there because not that they work for Timcast, but Timcast hired 30 people. Those 30 people need plumbing services. They need groceries. They need food deliveries. They need clothing. So when they went to the grocery store and bought all that stuff up, those stores had to hire more people to accommodate the increase in people, bringing even more people in.
Right.
All of a sudden, that pizza shop owner, his property values tripled. All of a sudden, he's selling more pizzas than he can. And he says, guys, we got to expand. So he hires more people. Well, one day, Elaad shows up and says, we shouldn't have laws like this. You shouldn't be allowed to offer tax benefits to these companies.
No. I believe that you shouldn't be able to give special incentives to specific companies that our government negotiates with corporations that give them different rules than other corporations in the neighborhood. Because that isn't capitalism, it's crony capitalism.
So let me finish.
And that's why you don't want to do it
How
here.
about you let me finish? West Virginia passed a law which makes it illegal for us to buy content from Elaad. In order for Elaad to sell content to us, he has to open a West Virginia business, get permitted, and everything that goes along with it, and it costs a lot of money. Then he has to pay taxes in 2 states.
Ouch.
That's right. So they're double dipping and taking money from him, and if he doesn't pay it, they come to us and demand that we do. That's the law. Okay? Other states don't have that law. Not that I have to negotiate with anybody. I don't got to negotiate with the governor. I can say, Governor, with all due respect, your laws are abject evil. I should be allowed to contract from an individual who wants to sell a product to me. So you know what? I will drive 10 miles to a different state that has none of these laws. Do you think West Virginia wants to lose that tax base and the economic boon to all the people who live in the area?
No, they would consider giving you a special carve-out.
Right. Now, I'm not a fan of that, so I largely rejected it. However, what would happen to the pizza shop that now has hired 5 employees to accommodate all the pizzas that we order if we leave?
They would be fired, and that is capitalism.
And the shop may go out of business. You know why? The expanded infrastructure of the pizza shop, including their footprint, the gas, the propane they buy, the electricity, when they get a bigger building, now their mortgage goes up, now their rent goes up. All of a sudden, overnight, their revenue drops by 40, 50%. And he says, it's not that I have to fire you guys. I have to sell the building.
Yeah.
We were expanding, and then they pulled the rug out from under us. Now there's no pizza shop. It's all gone. So what does West Virginia do? They say, let's talk to Tim Pool and figure out how we can make this work for him, because clearly something is not right. That's called standard negotiations, and it's called how humans operate with each other. We do not live in a rigid machine world where everything is predicated upon if this, then that. Human beings we have judges, and the reason we have a judiciary is to interpret the law as to what makes the most sense. And that is 2 human beings are allowed to come to an agreement, like Eric Adams and Donald Trump.
Does that mean we'll be seeking a carve-out? Will Timcast be seeking a carve-out from the governor?
I have reached out to the governor. He has responded. We have not yet had a conversation, but I'm actually seeking the overturning of West Virginia's Employment Classification Act of 2021, whatever it's called, which makes it literally illegal to be, like, let me just hammer it out very simply. Elaad lives in a different state. Sometimes he films news. He then reaches out to us and says, would you like to buy this product that I have made? We then said, that's actually pretty good. We'll take it. They came to us, told us he was a full-time employee, that we now have to pay they're saying no penalties, but everything you've paid him, we want you to pay an additional percentage on top for everything you've ever bought from him. And I said, he's a contractor. We paid our bills as if he was a contractor, as per our lawyers and our accountants. And they said, we don't care. So now I'm like, okay. So now what's happening is they've sent us this massive tax bill demanding money from us because they're trying to squeeze blood from a stone. And I would rather leave this state than let them rip me off and disrespect me the way they are. That is absolutely psychotic. But you know what? Anyway, let's talk about news.
Chloe,
this tax stuff.
yeah.
It's tax.
I feel like I've learned more from this than I have in 4 years of high school.
Well, I have good news for you.
Welcome to IRL.
This next story from the Post-Millennial, RFK Jr.'s Department of Health and Human Services officially defines woman as an adult human female.
Chloe, your thoughts?
It's ridiculous that we have to do that. It's like something that we can just see plainly with our eyes, and
How do you feel about the fact that the I mean, obviously it is, I think we mostly agree with you that it is ridiculous, but how do you feel about the fact that this administration is taking the ideologically possessed to task with this and making it a part of actual government policy?
I mean, this is exactly what we've needed for years. The other side has just gone too far, and this is exactly the kind of it sucks that that's what we need, but I'm losing my train of thought.
Yeah, no, we were.
So, I mean, for people that might not be aware of you, why don't you tell a little bit about your story and your experience?
So I went through a medical gender transition while I was still a child because I
How old?
I was 12 when I started calling myself a boy, and that was after years of going through a bit of an early puberty and the distress that comes with that, a sexual assault, and I was just a tomboy, and that's where these feelings of distress came from. And because like I was so distressed, I wanted to not have a female body. Then my doctors in the state of California agreed, no, you're not a girl. These feelings are real.
How did they define boy and girl for you?
No, there was no definition. I got to choose my own definition.
Wow.
Based on my own feelings. It's all based on feelings. And children are being and vulnerable people who are not in the mindset to be making major lifelong decisions, are being allowed to have parts of their bodies cut off and be castrated for life because of temporary distress. Mm-hmm. And men are being allowed to go into women's private spaces and invade what used to be safe for us, go into our bathrooms, go into our locker rooms, go into programs specifically made for us. And yes, prisons. And of course, they're taking advantage of this. They've been sexually assaulting us. They've been raping us. Women in prison are now getting pregnant because there are men being housed with them.
You know what's fascinating is that there was no definition of boy, girl, man, or woman. Whenever you would ask one of these liberals or leftists, they would just say, haha, you don't know what a woman is? And it's like, I do, but you know.
They can't answer that themselves.
And so the interesting thing is, though, they can't define it, but they can prescribe a surgery to adhere to the lack of a definition.
Which is, of course, based on
Why?
The sex-based definition, because that's the only
Exactly.
definition of male and female.
So if they say it's whatever you want it to be, then certainly a female does not need to have a mastectomy to be a boy because it's whatever you want it to be, right?
So why are we pushing people to these surgeries?
And why were they prescribing these treatments?
So when you initially started having these feelings, was there someone encouraging you, or did you have people that were encouraging you, or how did you stumble upon the idea that you may not be a girl in the first place?
So there weren't people directly guiding me necessarily. As I said, I was kind of a tomboyish girl, and I connected more with like my male role models, and especially like my big brothers and the boys around me at school. And there were so many times when I thought, like, I don't feel like I'm very feminine. I don't feel like I fit in with the other girls around me, and I don't even feel like I'm pretty enough to be a woman. And I hate these changes that are coming with puberty. So why would I ever want to be a woman? Like everything I hear about being a woman, it's always about periods, menopause, the fear of aging, and nobody ever talks about the good things. So why would I ever want any of that? Eventually I started having I would look in the mirror and think like, I'm never going to be a good woman. So why should I just be a boy? I would have been so much happier if I were a young man than a young woman.
So it sounds like to me, the way you're articulating it sounds like you're saying you had a discomfort with being a woman, more than you had a belief that you're a man.
And eventually that became a belief that I was a young man, but that didn't naturally come on its own. I started using social media when I was about 11, and I got my first cell phone, and I would mostly browse like stuff that was like oriented around my interest. But a lot of the kids that were also in these communities online just so happened to be young girls and sometimes boys who called themselves by the opposite sex. And this was nothing I'd ever like really read about my whole life. So it was very novel, very interesting.
This wasn't on Tumblr, was it?
Well, I wasn't really using Tumblr a whole lot at the time, but there was like a lot of overlap between Instagram, which is primarily what I was using, and that community. There was like a lot of cross posting between the platforms, so it was basically the same kind of culture between the two. And
probably after the Tumblr shut down then.
No, it was like I'd say it was like probably like 5 years before that maybe.
Okay.
But like seeing these other kids who I could relate to like more than anybody that I knew in real life, and seeing them seemingly become happier through doing this and get through all the same problems that I had was like, wait, this is like the logical next step for me because they are just like me.
What was your parents' reaction to all this stuff?
When I first told them, they were kind of at a loss. Like they knew that I was a tomboyish girl, but I don't think any sane parent wants to hear this from their own kid. Like I feel so distressed that I don't want to be the person who I was made to be in your womb. I feel like it's such a painful thing for a mother or father to hear from their own kid, and it certainly was for them. But they could see like it was clearly a mental health issue for me, and it probably came from some of my other social and emotional difficulties that I was going through at the time, and just me being a kid going through puberty. And they had the right idea. Like they were okay with me just like experimenting with the way that I dressed and stuff, and nothing beyond that. They didn't believe that I was actually their son, but they had their hand forced when they decided that they were going to send me to a therapist and to get me a psychiatric evaluation and mental health help. For one, they weren't allowed in the room with me, so they didn't know what was actually going on.
Your parents weren't what?
They weren't allowed in the room with me during these consultations.
Oh, really?
By California law.
What age?
I was 12, going on 13 at the time, and I was going to my 8th grade year of middle school. So when my mom and dad spoke to the
And your
therapist
parents were
themselves,
not allowed to be in the room.
no, so there's a California law that's basically it emancipates minors at the age of 12, for the purpose of their mental health.
Wow.
So they can seek mental health treatment without the involvement or notification of their parents.
But you said they weren't allowed. So was it your choice for them to?
So they were the ones who had me see the therapist, but because I didn't give express consent to have them in there with me, then they weren't allowed to know what was like discussed during these appointments or just be in there. They just had to like wait outside the door and wait for me to come out. And there was no follow-up or anything. And I was like a 12-year-old kid with communication issues. And just the fact that we were being separated had me thinking like, wait, what if my mom and dad would get angry at me for talking about this? So
there's implication in that. There's a lot of times they don't, or at least if you're separating children from parents, there's an implication to the child that's not communicated verbally, but there's an implication that, hey, maybe there's something wrong with your parents knowing this.
Right. And I mean, if you're already like a kid who doesn't have a super close relationship with their parents in the first place, then that's going to further divide that. And so when you start to separate a child from the parent, things will get worse for them in every way. So I was going to therapy, but nothing was happening other than me being told like, oh yeah, you are a boy. Your feelings are real. And you like we're going to expect your mom and dad to go along with this. There was nothing actually happening to help me with real issues that I had. I was going through a bit of a depression at the time because all my friends were older than me, and I was in 8th grade, but everybody else, all my older friends had graduated and gone to high school by that point. I was being bullied at school, and I just wanted to feel like I had some place of belonging and some sense of understanding myself and an identity. And that was really all I needed. And the fix to that would have just been simple. But they made it into this complex thing.
There was this theory that I heard. There are a decent amount of kids who claim to be trans. It's actually because something in their life, maybe they're young, high school, 14, 15. Let's say because we're in the era of social media and there's videos. When I was a kid, if you like barfed in the cafeteria, everyone would be like, whoa, dude, you see him barf? These days, you barf in the cafeteria, somebody filmed it, it's up on social media, and it's permanent, it's forever.
Yep.
And so I was reading this thing about how there are some therapists who believe that when a child in grade school or high school experiences a trauma and it's attached to them permanently through social media, there is only one way to escape that: change who you are. And that they've encountered certain circumstances where the individual who was distressed was actually trying to escape something attached to their name. Hence, they wanted to change their name and change who they were. And when they went to counselors and said, I have anxiety all the time, I don't feel right, I'm constantly being bullied, blah, 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 they said, maybe you're trans. And they said, what does that mean? And they said, we can change your name, we can change who you are, you'll go to a different school, and you'll be a different person. And that was an escape to the bullying and trauma of their previous person. And not only that, if anyone at the other school dead named that person and brought up anything from their past, you'd get in trouble. So
They're protected.
Suddenly you're protected. You can't be bullied anymore as long as you go along with this thing.
Oh.
Yep.
Incentive.
I mean, I am part of the first generation of kids who grew up with basically these eyeballs all around us that if somebody catches something stupid that you're doing or saying, it's on the internet forever, and people know you for it forever. And I definitely felt that sense of pressure growing up. I was bullied not only at school, but also people would say post photos of me and say awful things about me online. These other kids who I went to school with, and I think it's no wonder that kids want to escape the mistakes of their past when they're not allowed to live it down.
Well, it's all changing now.
Is there?
It's RFK Jr. formally states. The HHS has released their updated definition for sex, going through all elements of the department. Blah blah blah. It says sex is a person's immutable biological classification. Female is a person of the sex characterized by a reproductive system with the biological function of producing eggs or ova. Male, same thing, but sperm. Woman is an adult human female. Girl is a minor human female. Man is an adult human male. Boy is a minor human male. Mother is a female parent. Father is a male parent.
And immutable is the key word here because no matter what somebody does to their body, whether they have their puberty stopped or they take cross-sex hormones over the course of a few years or they get their sex organs chopped off or reconfigured, you cannot actually change your sex. It's something that stays with you for life. It's determined at conception. And you just become somebody with less parts or less functioning parts of your body.
I mean,
Chloe, was there something that happened that made it click in your head that you are in fact a woman?
So throughout most of my transition, I was pretty confident in this idea that I was a young man and that this was going to make me feel happy and more fulfilled. Although pre-surgery, I'd say about a year into my transition, I started to realize that for whatever reason, I wasn't happy again. The euphoria that initially came with transitioning and with being recognized as a young man at school and with perfectly passing as the opposite sex was going to go away, and it just became life, and things were worse after the fact. But I started really ruminating because it's nobody had ever presented this idea to me before, not even my own doctors, that I could regret things one day or that it could be harmful or detrimental for me. So I thought that the issue was still my body and that I still had to change something. And I still had breasts. I'd already gone through a little bit of puberty, so I had decently developed breasts. And I thought, oh, that's it. I have to get rid of this. I am going to get surgery to get rid of these things, and I'm not going to have to worry about changing the locker room anymore. I am not going to have to wear a shirt while swimming or while hanging out with my friends anymore. I can just be like a normal guy and never have to bind ever again. But as soon as I had the surgery, something clicked. And I think what it was that it was so... It was so irreversible and so immediately impactful. I had to grapple with the fact that I lost organs off of my body forever.
That would hit
And
yeah.
Around this time, I started realizing, wait, I kind of missed some of the things about being a girl, just socially. I didn't miss periods. I didn't miss all the other things that come with female puberty, but just the little things like wearing makeup, wearing mascara, having fun with my
all
hair.
the time?
You know Ali London?
Yes, I do.
Ali London said that after he kept getting all these surgeries, constantly thinking this one more would do it. And then after one moment, he just realized no matter how many surgeries he got, he didn't feel any better.
Yep.
And he needs to stop doing this.
It's basically, it works very similarly to a drug addiction or dependency. But I think what really broke the glass for me, what completely took down the house of cards for me was when I had surgery, I was 15 and I turned 16 about a year after, about a month afterward. And then I was like, wait, I'm almost 18 years old. I'm almost legally an adult. I'm going to have to start thinking about my future beyond just what school I want to go to. I never had a relationship before. I don't think I even had a first kiss by the point in time. So I was thinking, wait, so when I have a relationship, am I going to get married? Is my partner going to call me a wife or a husband? And if I have children one day, I don't know how I'm going to do that while I'm on testosterone. I'm probably going to have to go off, which is probably going to induce more dysphoria. And even if I'm off of it for a while, what risks are there for me being a pregnant mother and any risk of birth defects for my child? And psychologically, how is me choosing to transition going to affect my children? How am I going to explain to my kids that I'm not actually their second father? I'm a mother, but I've chosen to live the lifestyle of a young man. I'm taking all these drugs to try and become something that I'm not. Is that not going to be damaging for them? And then I had this lesson in my junior year of high school about, I think it was the Harlow experiments on rhesus monkeys, the wire mother versus cloth mother. And it was the first time that I ever really thought about like breastfeeding or nursing in depth. And it hit me. Wait. So there's this like almost like universal experience for every mother who has naturally had their child of breastfeeding. And this is very special. And there's a lot of bonding and other things that go on during this. I'm never going to have that. What do you mean I'm never going to have that? Did I just lose potentially major parts of my adulthood during my childhood? And on one hand, I basically logicked my way out of my transition. But on the other hand, the grief and the pain was what finally made me decide that I couldn't go through with it anymore.
Wow.
Because it was killing me. Literally, I was like experiencing physical complications from it. I was having blood clots. I was having urinary tract issues. I didn't want to know how much worse my health was going to get if I kept going down this path. And I couldn't forgive myself. I thought, if I'm a mother, then I must be a monster for taking this away from my kids. And how I'm still a woman. None of this actually made me into a man. Am I just ugly now? Am I just a freak forever? I don't have any breasts. I look like a man. I sound like a man. I have the voice of a grown man as a 16-year-old girl.
You're not, by the way.
Thank you. At the time, it was really rough, though. I didn't think I ever would recover. And one of the things that they used to really push my mom and dad into saying yes to all of this was the idea that I would commit suicide if I wasn't affirmed and if I wasn't allowed to do basically whatever the hell I wanted. But the truth is that I wasn't even close to suicide before. I was lonely, I was depressed, but I wanted to have a better life. I didn't want to take my own life. This only brought me closer to suicide.
Wow.
I had never been closer to taking my life than during the detransition process because I thought that life was already over for me, that I wasn't going to make it to 18 years old, and that I wasn't going to ever be happy again.
That was very powerful. Thank you for the advocacy work you do. You're very brave to speak about this issue, and I know the pushback you get from the far left as a result of this. So I commend you for speaking out so bravely on this.
Thank you.
And yeah, not to be just too hard of a segue after that powerful story.
I got teary-eyed.
Yeah, let's jump to this next story. This one's from the New York Sun. I'm using this as a launching point to elaborate into a deeper story. They say Google searches for criminal defense lawyers surge at Washington, D.C. with Trump in the White House. Now, we did cover this story before, and I want to give a shout out to Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen Reports because he has continued his investigation here, and it gets particularly worrying. The first thing I want to say before we get anything, if you or anyone you know has expressed or is feeling any kind of thoughts of self-harm, please reach out to someone you know and love. There's a story about the Golden Gate Bridge where they interviewed survivors, people who had jumped off trying to end their own lives. And they asked these people, what was the first thing that went through your mind when you jumped? And you know what they all said?
No.
They regretted it.
Every single one of them.
They realized every problem in their life was solvable except having just jumped off a bridge.
That makes
Universally.
100% sense.
Yeah.
Universally, they all said they regretted it. And we are all worse off for everybody who takes their own life. Life is precious.
Amen.
I am anti-death penalty, man. Even though I know there are bad people out there. With all that being said, Mark Mitchell has done the search and found that in the District of Columbia, the search term suicide has been spiking since the USAID story went viral. I decided to dig a little bit deeper than that and see how it correlates with other search terms, including criminal lawyer, which I brought up, layoffs, and fraud. And that's where things get very interesting. These search terms all track very close to each other, indicating their volume is comparable. For instance, we can see here criminal lawyer, suicide, layoff, fraud in the District of Columbia for the month of February. You can see that they're all relatively comparable in terms of their scale. Despite the fraud search term reaching 99%, you can still see that the other search terms track somewhat alongside it, sometimes overlapping. To show you that this is a direct correlation of comparable volume, I'm going to add the search term Super Bowl. I mean, look, criminal lawyer is a fairly common thing, right? When you add Super Bowl, it basically erases all of the other search terms, indicating volume for Super Bowl greatly exceeds the volume for the other terms. Now, that's unfair. The Super Bowl's massive, right? Let's just try.
I mean, that's only a 4-day span, too.
When you put in the search term for pizza, you can see there is no trend. Pizza tends to go up on the weekends and then go down on the Mondays or whatever. But for the most part, search on Google in District of Columbia for pizza is basically the same and drops all of the other search terms down to single digits, sometimes 1, 2, 4 or otherwise, whereas pizza remains strong. So what this means is criminal lawyer, suicide, layoff, and fraud are all being searched for in comparable volume, indicating that at the very least, how they are all beginning to trend around the same time and that they are all around the same numbers. It is likely one cohort in the District of Columbia that is experiencing something like this. I guess what I'm saying is this is circumstantial evidence that following the gutting of USAID, now the IRS and these other government departments, the firing of these individuals and the fear of fraud has resulted in these people searching for these terms. When criminal lawyer was found to be going viral or trending on Google search, a lot of people were like, I wonder how many people near DC knew that they were defrauding the government. When you then see that Mark Mitchell searched for the term suicide and saw a comparable trend on Google in the District of Columbia, you have to wonder what is the motivating factor. That's why I added these other terms. It could be layoffs. It could be the fraud. But it seems to be that the actions being taken by Donald Trump has resulted in people panicking, fearing criminal prosecution, searching for the term fraud for any reason, and some people contemplating self-harm, which I will stress, please, seek help. Nobody, don't do it. But simply to wrap it all up,
Have
there's
there
a
been
lot
any
of
reported
criminals.
suicides or attempts?
Well, I mean, that's going to be hard to find. You're like, if it's a delicate issue, and I don't know that any journalist wants to go to local fire departments in DC and start asking them those questions, but maybe.
Fair.
Journalists sometimes ask those questions, real ones. But I think it's plain to see there's a lot of people who are probably guilty about something or scared of something.
Yeah, I mean, there's part of me that wonders if people are freaking out because of what they believe Trump will do once, like, Kash Patel's once he gets into his position and he's confirmed, and the actual policies that Trump has been talking about. I wonder if people think that this situation is they're going to persecute me because I was anti-Trump, as opposed to I know that I've actually done something wrong and I have to worry about it. Because there's so many people that have this hyperbolic they believe Trump is a dictator. They genuinely believe the garbage that they say about him, like Trump is Hitler, et cetera, et cetera. And so I wonder if these searches are because they're like, oh man, they're on to me and they know what I've done, or if they're like, oh, Trump is the reincarnation of Hitler and he's going to come. It almost makes me wonder if it's like narcissistic and like self-aggrandizing. Like, I work at the IRS and he's going to come after me. It's like, well, you're not really that big of a deal there.
I feel like if you're working for the government for the last couple of years, for the last how long they were working in the government, they've partaken in something that has been a kind of a bit shady. No matter what. I'm sure one little thing they did was like a little shady one day. 3 years ago, they're like, wait, maybe that was wrong. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. And this might be like, oh, shoot, now they're going to come after us. They're going to come after this one thing.
In the interest of fairness, I'd like to read this super chat from Real Hydro.
Hey.
Who said, Valentine's Day just passed. It's the time people look to end things. Tim, you just look for correlation to fit your narrative, confirmation bias. Well, sir, in the interest of fairness, I have just pulled up the search for Valentine's Day and suicide for the month of February and found zero correlation on any of the days. Yeah, I searched for a bunch of other terms too. I searched for Trump, I searched for Biden, I searched for Democrat, I searched for Republican. When I was doing my story earlier and pulling up this research, I didn't just choose those 4 words. Those are the 4 words that seemed to correlate to comparable volume. As you can see, Valentine's Day maintains a stable Google search trend, and there is no correlation with suicide. Even when Valentine's Day spikes to 100%, the suicide term doesn't move at all. There's no correlation at all.
Is that a real thing? Do people...
I'm sure that people are lonely and depressed.
But do they go to that? I mean, I've never heard of that being...
It's clearly not there.
Right.
Clearly not there.
There we go.
So when you see that the term for suicide spiked, what day was it? February 5th. February 5th is when that term spiked, alongside fraud at 100%, meaning for every 8 searches, or how do we want to do the math on this one? Let's just say it was 3 to 4 or 4 to 3. There were 4 fraud searches for every 3 suicide searches on the same day. And that's February 5th, not Valentine's Day.
It's kind of extreme, man. Like, I did a little fraud, so I'm going to, like, consider, you know.
Well, I mean, look, I genuinely believe tough. There are people in D.C. who are sweating bullets right now because they know they were sending in fraudulent invoices to the government. And Elon is auditing. And that's why the entire apparatus of the bureaucracy was fighting against Trump and Elon. Look, man, it's really simple. 10 years ago, some guy gets out of college. He moved to D.C. He's like, I'm going to work for these lobbying firms or whatever. And it's a job. He moves up a little bit. And then someone says, hey, submit this invoice to the Treasury Department. And he looks at it and he goes, these are billable hours we didn't do. And he goes, but just send them in anyway. They'll pay it. Are we allowed to do that? They always just pay.
So what we do?
Are you sure we're allowed to do this? This is how D.C. works, kid. Do you want to work in D.C. or not? You send in the hours, they pay. And he goes, all right, I guess. A couple of years goes by, and he's like, this is what we do. Start sending in hours himself, saying, what did we do? We did 10 hours, call it 20. Trump gets in and says, we're going to look for the fraud. And now this person is sweating bullets, being like, I must have billed 7,000 hours over the past several years, ripping off the government for $1 million. That's felony prison sentence level stuff. And everybody did it. And now his lawyers going, oh, yeah, everybody was committing a crime, so you did too. Good luck telling the judge that.
But they're looking up suicide. What are they looking up? Like, how do I...
No, well, I don't care.
I'm just saying...
I don't care.
Take it back. Not a good search product. Just fraud is a big deal. And yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was wondering the same thing. Like, I don't know if this is insensitive to say. I just think about all the times that I've been suicidal. If you really intend to
we don't want to speculate or deep dive into any of that. We don't want people to do it, nor do we want anyone to learn or get any ideas as to what it could mean or why or anything other than nobody should. And people love you.
Agreed.
And if you're concerned about your friends and your family, for the love of all that is holy, please check on them.
And if you have those feelings, do the very opposite. Live harder.
Live harder, and be responsible for the actions you've taken. You know, I apologize for cutting you guys off.
No worries, I understand.
My concern is there's going to be one person out there, and any kind of explanation or elaboration could lead someone down a dark path. We don't want that.
No, we want everyone to live happy, healthy lives.
Yep.
Man.
No matter who they are.
Look, I'm against the death penalty. I think there are evil people out there who do evil deeds, and we have a right to defend ourselves. That includes lethal force.
Yeah.
And this is codified in law when you're allowed to do it. Now, check your state laws. I'm not giving you advice on anything. But I still don't want anybody to lose their life.
Agreed.
Even it's a challenge. There's a lot of people out there saying the internet. There's a lot of people in the comments like, Tim, you're wrong. Some people are so evil. I'm like, I get it. I get it. I understand. I will just never glorify death from anyone for any reason, because we hope. I mean, look, life. Life is light. It is the creation, is the expansion.
It's a miracle.
There is, you know, it is. the laws of thermodynamics as we know them is that the universe tends towards chaos, and life is striving to fight against the darkness every single day. So we want in all our power to preserve life to the best of our abilities in every facet, and it's really, really difficult to do.
Well, they're crooks, so they're looking up fraud, and they're worried about Trump.
And I'm worried about them too, because look, you may have taken money from the government illicitly or for whatever reason, but I don't want bad things to happen to you. First of all, we want public accountability. We want to know what happened. We want penance. We want responsibility and accountability. And we want rehabilitation. And we want to know that we are that we're going to do the best of the right by those who are wronged by this. And just, we want to be good.
That kind of reminds me of Miss Chloe. Love. I was saying love conquers all. Because at the end of the day, I'm sure you've discovered love. And that is a beautiful thing.
Right.
Everyone
Absolutely.
loves love. Right?
Chloe, you've discovered love?
I don't.
I don't know.
I just
like in a
mean in
romantic
general.
sense.
Oh, this is awfully personal. Yeah, geez. Not awkward at all.
I mean, just
I discovered love. Who
in
doesn't?
Love in
general.
general.
A love of life, a love of God,
Yes.
a love of everything that I have. That was exactly what I lacked before.
Yeah.
And that's what leads people into dark places like that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Phil. Love everything.
Let's jump to this next story, which is, this is probably one of the more serious stories of the day. This is from NPR. Trump claims expanded power over independent agencies. I appreciate the simple narrative from NPR, in all honesty, because what Trump did was he basically said the Constitution, Article 1 says the executive power is vested in the president. Congress at some point created independent agencies that they claim Trump has no authority over, despite the fact the Constitution says he has full authority over the executive branch. It is fascinating to me that right now the narrative is Trump just made a major power grab, as all the progressive organizations, because he issued an executive order saying federal agencies have to report to the Office of Management and Budget, and then we're going to supervise the things they're doing and the money they're spending.
This is a continuation, or it relates to something that we've been talking about, which is or at least my belief that I think most of the people around the table have said they kind of agree with, that Donald Trump is trying to get the authority back into the office of the presidency, the constitutional authority over the executive branch. So there's all these bureaucracies that have grown up underneath the cabinet ministers, underneath the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, all the cabinet, right? So they all have a bureaucracy. Each cabinet position has a bureaucracy underneath them, and in there it's full of people that can't get fired. Government employees never get fired because there are unions that protect them, which are absolutely abhorrent. There should be no public sector unions. Unions should not exist to work against the American people. The office of the president should have the authority to fire whoever he wants in the executive branch. So the executive branch it exists in order to carry out the laws written by Congress. Congress writes the laws, the president executes them. That's why it's the executive branch. He does have latitude in how they're executed, and that's why there are some rules that can be made in the executive branch, but all of the executive branch agencies, they've all become de facto legislators because the rules that they come up with have the force of law. And these are positions that you cannot, that right now it's difficult to fire people. And when I say difficult, almost impossible. So the point that Donald Trump is making with these kinds of moves is to get this question in front of the Supreme Court so he can have the backing of the court to say, no, the executive does have the authority to fire people. The executive does have the authority to decide how things are carried out. And this is vitally necessary because the executive, as in the president, is elected by the people. The bureaucracy is not. We hear people talk about things like the entrenched bureaucracy and the forever state and the government that doesn't go away. The bureaucracy has they have no obligation to listen to the people. There's some changes when a new executive comes in, but when the bureaucracy has been there for 20 years, 15, 20 years, they're not going to be all that concerned with a new administration. It's basically business as usual. That's why USAID has done all the things that it's done. That's why there's no changes at the FDA. That's why there's never any changes at the EPA. That's why the government's power only grows. So this is extremely important to get the power back to the elected official in the executive branch because that's the way that the people can actually decide how they're governed.
Has the Congress for years been working towards making the executive branch less powerful by
no,
making these
actually,
independent
no.
agencies?
I would call it anarcho-tyranny
Okay.
in that they've empowered it in the worst ways possible while
Yep.
curtailing it in the worst ways possible.
Yep.
So
Both ends of the
president, yep. So the president can go to war whenever he wants, but can't stop the out of control spending and the corruption.
Jeez.
Basically,
Jeez.
Congress has empowered corruption in every aspect.
Well, and both of those things that Tim's are talking about are unconstitutional, right? The Congress voted to give President George Bush the authority to decide if he was going to take military action in Iraq, and they did it because it was full of cowards that didn't want to actually vote on whether or not to go to war. The reason we haven't had an official war and we've only had police actions and the war on terror that was carried out under the authorization to use military force, it's because the Congress has been spineless and afraid to actually vote yes or no on war. If they give the power to the president, which they don't have any constitutional authority to do that, right? The Constitution says Congress declares war. It doesn't say Congress declares war unless Congress is full of chicken shits that don't want to actually vote on it because they're afraid of their constituents, so they can give that power to the president. You can't give that power to the president without a constitutional amendment. But Congress is cowards and the entire government is lawless. So we need to have the president have his constitutional powers, which is not to execute foreign wars or to engage in foreign wars, but is to fire bureaucrats.
That makes sense. I would like to know, my friend, how do you feel about going over fighting in the desert and us going to war with them, like without the
Really doing that?
How do I feel about fighting in the desert? I feel like it's dry and hot to fight in the desert.
Okay.
If you fight in the jungle, it could be wet, muddy,
Moist.
moist.
Moist. What a nice word.
I don't-
Okay, so yeah, it kind of sucks. That means the last 40 some years, must shoot longer than that. We've been running an unconstitutional government
Yeah.
for all of our foreign actions.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Very clearly.
Since the end of World War II.
Yeah.
And so now Donald Trump is trying to bring it all back to sanity.
Love it.
It is remarkable to me that Congress created agencies of the executive branch that operate outside the powers of the president because that's unconstitutional on its face. And now they're arguing it's unconstitutional for Trump to try and assert his constitutional authority as president. It is clear that their intent was to create a deep state bureaucratic machine that operated outside the confines of any branch, and that Trump would try to stop it, they claim is what's wrong. Well, I say what Trump is doing is what needed to be done a long time ago, and for the first time in my life, we have a real president.
Is that Yuri Bezmenov, that gentleman who said we've been infiltrated many years ago? You think that's the underlining?
I don't know.
And
I don't know.
Some people might. I know.
Yeah.
Former KGB spy Yuri
Yep.
Bezmenov.
Yeah.
I love his work. I think he's spot on about the threat from Russia in particular.
Yeah, I agree. And I would even go further than what Elaad says. I would say that it's from the whole leftist ideology. So it was the KGB and was the Soviet Union. But after the fall of the Soviet Union, the people that are leftists, the people that believe in communism, the people that believe that is the goal of society, that it is an inevitable march towards a global society with no currency and no property. Those people didn't just go away, and those ideas just didn't go away just because the Soviet Union fell apart. So I think that.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Putin's one of them.
Yeah.
He was a KGB guy.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And he's long lamented the fall of the Soviet Union. There are a lot of people in Russia who feel that the Soviet Union did not have to collapse. And I don't completely disagree. I mean, there are ways to keep people oppressed, but it did. And a lot of these people were pissed off about it and want to bring it back.
I think the Soviet Union's collapse is one of the great American triumphs over communism, and it was a good thing. And we probably should have pushed harder before the CCP became a thing in China. Better to nip it in the bud sooner than later. But
Yeah, I'm
You
not.
can thank the U.S. government for empowering China,
Yes.
enriching them as well.
who was it? Kissinger
I think Nixon.
Nixon and Kissinger helped open trade relationship.
Why is Wilcox
trying
the
to
new
normalize?
Kissinger then? Why is Steve Wilcox the new Henry Kissinger? He's
Well,
labeled
Henry
as-
Kissinger was viewed as like a realist diplomat who, did he really open China, or just was he not thinking that pretending that Taiwan was how long could we ignore China for before we try to build some sort of relationships with them? As I think it's this realpolitik school of thought, and he was able to accomplish a lot with his sort of diplomacy, especially compared to the people who came after him.
Deng Xiaoping was the I guess I forget, prime minister of China.
At that
What was he?
time.
The chairman. Yeah, he was the chairman at the time that Nixon went over there. And Deng Xiaoping had a different relationship with Marxist theory than like Mao. So Mao Zedong he believed Marxist theory. He believed that China was a Marxist-Leninist country with Chinese characteristics, whereas Deng Xiaoping believed that he had a saying that was, I don't care if the cat is black or white as long as it catches mice. So he didn't care if it was purely Marxist-Leninist or what type of communist was, as long as it provided for the people and kept the Communist Party in power. And so that's why that's why they opened up markets, and that's why you have things like China has massive industry, and they have what looks like markets in China, but they're all controlled by the CCP, by the actual Communist Party. That's why ByteDance has an official CCP representative in their office, like in the building. They have someone that represents the CCP, and they all know that if the CCP says do this, they have to do this, or the CCP will take their property.
We've got breaking news. Trump just signed an executive order terminating all taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal aliens and the end of subsidization of open borders. So that's actually I think, more massive than people realize. With things like TPS and housing, jobs, vouchers, I mean, I'm curious about what's going to happen to these luxury hotels in New York.
I believe also illegal migrants get health care through the city in New York City, if I'm not mistaken.
in Pennsylvania we did, but you had to be a minor. We would give no matter who you are, we'd give in Pennsylvania.
Not if you're an American citizen, though.
Oh no.
Gotta look.
Yeah, it's very true.
So, and then there's the right to housing laws in New York City, which is why all the migrants had to be housed in these different hotels and whatnot by law. So we'll see how. I'm sure this will go up through the courts.
Why is he doing it so late at night? What's going on? I mean, no, we got to go super chats.
Bro, what do you mean?
Man.
Yes, the man's working.
He's always working,
Remember when Joe Biden was in office, and they would literally call a lid at 1 in the afternoon?
He's running for office, doing lids at
done
9
for
a.m.
the day.
I wish I could do that.
I mean, I kind of do.
Then become president, yeah.
My struggle is to sleep enough, because I used to not sleep because I just don't have time, don't want it.
Yeah.
But now I'm trying to sleep more, and it's actually very difficult. Like, normally I would sleep 6 hours a night, and I hear Trump does too. And my sleep tracker was always like, you're doing great. But now I'm like, I'm going to try and just get more sleep, although my tracker's now saying you can't force more sleep if your body doesn't need it.
You better get in while you can, Tim.
I've been doing about 7 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm getting
I
my
need
sleep.
more than that. I need like 10 hours of sleep per night, which
Well-
after quarantine, I used to get
10 hours is nuts.
I used to go to bed at 3 a.m.
Women.
and wake up at 3 p.m. And then for a few years while doing this stuff, I would get maybe a total of 5 hours per night, which is not good.
Women require more sleep than men.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
I think
So I was pretty messed up for a while, as you can probably imagine.
Yeah.
when I moved down here in my apartment, I bought a nice bed, like a really nice mattress, and I sleep for 9 hours if I don't set an alarm. And I shouldn't be sleeping that long because, as you get older, you're supposed to get less. You're supposed to require less and less sleep. I thought.
Really?
No, you require more.
That's why grandmas,
I thought old people slept less.
they wake up super early, old Grammys. My
They
grandma's-
also go to sleep earlier.
No. So, I'm getting close to 40, and I've got my sleep and health and fitness trackers, and it gives you a detailed breakdown. And you need more sleep. You have less human growth hormone when you sleep. You get less testosterone when you sleep. So you need to really maximize your deep sleep, which is the first block within the first hour or so. I got a Sleep 8 bed. Amazing. Luke recommended it. Mm-hmm. It's automated temperature control. So it adjusts the temperature to keep you asleep and maximize deep sleep. And then when you wake up, it shows you your REM, light, and deep sleep, and when you're awake. and it maps it out for you. And then based on your sleeping pattern, you can assess what your issues are. And so there's a whole bunch of tricks that it tells you, like you want to maximize deep sleep, you want to get more REM sleep. I bought this thing called the Sleep Sanity. It's like a mask with goggles. It's a weird thing. It's like a blindfold basically, but it's got Bluetooth. And when you go to bed, it has a yellow light. So it simulates sunset, which stimulates melatonin, which gives you better deep sleep. Oh. And then when you're about to wake up, it stimulates sunrise. So it naturally wakes you up in the morning so that your hormone levels are all great. Yeah, because humans used to go to sleep when it got dark and wake up when the sun was coming out. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to maximize. I'm just trying to make sure I'm doing everything as best as can possibly be done.
Is it too boomer for me to say that we're kind of overcomplicating something as simple as sleep with this?
No, I mean, I just think it's science. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to know why it is. Some days I wake up feeling tired, and some days I wake up feeling great. And I want to make sure every day I feel like I wake up feeling great. And so since I started using the sleep aid bed and the tracker, and there's a bunch of different strategies for the level of exercise you do. Some say have a protein shake before bed. Others say don't drink too much, otherwise you'll wake yourself up. You have to go to the bathroom, and that's bad for your sleep cycles. So there's strategies, but since I've done the basics of it, I've had no bad night's sleep for 5 years or longer. Nice. Yeah. I almost always wake up feeling great. And that's good. Maximum recovery.
Plus, I wake up feeling great just because I woke up breathing. So it's always a benefit to me.
For me, the issue is I work, basically 16-hour days. So
for sure.
When I'm going to bed, if I'm not, if for some reason I'm forced to stay awake, like I have to work till 1 a.m. for some reason, and then I go to bed, I wake up in pain. Like, it's just so hard to work, to think. Let's go to Super Chats, though. So smash the like button, share the show with everyone you know, become a member by joining Rumble Premium. Become a member of Rumble Premium. See, I'm still so used to saying member of Timcast. Rumble Premium is where the uncensored call-in show will be taking place in about 20 minutes. And it's going to be fun, uncensored, where our members will call and talk to us on the show. And then we'll get into heated debates. It'll be great. Also, for all of our Rumble Premium users, we've got feature-length documentaries. We have the Green Room podcast, which is an entirely other behind-the-scenes uncensored show. We recorded one with Chloe and Chuck earlier today, where Chloe told her story.
Nice.
It's very interesting. So if you want to get the straightforward story from Chloe, it's up on rumble.com/Timcast IRL. But for now, we'll grab your Super Chats. All right. Fukit Freddy says, Elaad is in the top 1% of the world and clueless. Well, all right.
Cool.
Jay Shield says, damn, Bernie aged in reverse. I don't know. Oh, is he talking about Elaad again?
What was that one?
Uh-oh, it's getting bad for you, buddy.
Said Bernie aged in reverse.
As long as they're sending the super chats in.
It is money.
I hope they don't start roasting me.
No, everyone loves you. A Siri Design says, Elaad, you're a communist and you don't even realize it, bro.
I don't think you're right, but okay. Taxation makes you a communist now. Believing in a progressive tax rate makes you a communist.
Yeah,
well, I mean, you ask a libertarian and they'll say yes.
Well, I think the libertarians are a Trojan horse for the left, if anything, so I'm good for them to think so.
What would you describe yourself as?
Anti-left.
All right.
Jason says, Milo was right. Oh, man.
Imagine
what?
Milo being a role model. So good for you. Yeah.
Normies Get Out says Elaad is a commie. I'm going to skip over those.
Normies Get Out, come on.
Lance says the income tax was sold as a temporary tax for the wealthy only. Elaad does not realize whatever we agree to will come down on everyone. That's an interesting point.
Or understanding of the argument. But
sure. So let's say we go, no, you're right. Bezos is a special case. Let's tax his unrealized gains. 50 years from now, every single person in this country will be taxed on anything they own, including a chair.
I don't know how else to say this, so I'll say it one more time. The top net worth individuals in our country need a special case, and the laws that we apply to them will not apply to people who earn less than.
Wait. I just feel like you didn't listen to anything I just said.
Yeah, I did. You said how now if we move forward with taxing.
I literally read a super chat that said the income tax was sold based on exactly what you just said. Following the course of history, it will be applied no matter what we do to everyone. And then you said again, as if you didn't listen to anything I just said.
No, the way I was expressing the mechanisms and how I want these laws to work. You're saying a bastardized version of what I'm advocating for. So
okay, let's start again.
That's like saying if you ever advocate for any sort of censorship at all, don't you know that censorship could be used against things you like? Therefore, we shouldn't censor anything.
So the argument is The income tax was originally sold as only on the wealthy, and the fear then is following that, it will be the same. Whereas the censorship argument is a moral argument over what we censor when we decide to censor it, and could go one of other directions. Taxes
the
have only floated in one
mechanisms
direction.
that taxes are done through can be used improperly. I don't know what to say. Yeah, bastardized versions of the way laws are supposed to be used is bad and wrong.
I just want to clarify. I mean, quite literally, if your argument is that the wealthy of this country should be taxed differently, that is socialist.
It's socialist to think what? Say that one more time.
If you believe that the highest tax bracket of wealth holders should have a special law placed against them to
be taxed differently.
So the government should seize their wealth.
No, not seize their wealth. Is the government seizing our wealth by taxing us?
Yes.
So, okay, so I guess we're in a socialist country right now?
We are called a mixed economy.
So not a socialist country.
So you got you slow down there, buddy. We are a mixed economy that applies certain socialist principles to capitalist markets. That's why we're not a capitalist country, nor we are but it's called a mixed economy because it applies both. And the argument often is the battle between the two and which direction we want to go. The left advocating for the socialist tilt, which is increase taxes more and more, and the free market side, which includes some Republicans and many libertarians, to decrease taxes.
So I disagree with the argument that taxes or increasing taxes and having different types of taxes on different income earners or net worth people is communist or socialist. I think it's like a misunderstanding of what socialist is. Socialist is when people seize the means of production. And just to say countries have taxation, I don't think it means there's... Phil, before you jump in, for example, many... Wait, can I please finish?
You made a point.
In the Nordic countries with high taxes, we don't call them socialist.
I'm going to turn it off because you made a point and then you tried rambling over. It's called a gish gallop so that no one could challenge your incorrect statement.
Which one? Go ahead.
That is stock. The wealth Bezos owns is his equity and ownership of the company, and you are advocating for seizing his means of production.
I said there should be a mechanism in which we have these high net worth individuals pay more in taxes.
I say let's seize it.
Okay, let's stop. You made a point. Now it will be addressed.
Okay,
you made your point.
Yes.
Okay.
Give me the money.
You advocated for the imagined equity ownership wealth,
Right.
not his income, correct?
Correct.
That is taking his control of the company away.
I don't know how else to say this, that Jeff Bezos should be taxed differently. I mean, you could not accept that. We should move forward. To call it socialist to suggest
Let's slow down. You made a point. Here's what we do. You make a point, and then someone responds to it. You're gish galloping. Do you know what that means?
Yeah.
It means you're saying a bunch of random things at once so no one can respond. Okay? Jeff Bezos should be taxed differently, particularly because he has massive wealth. His wealth is tied to his equity in Amazon. Correct. Right?
Yes.
You want to take that equity from him in some form, be it 1% or 10%. I don't know the number.
There should be a mechanism
Yes.
for these high net worth individuals to pay more in taxes.
Okay, well,
I am not an accounting professional. So whether that be they have to sell certain amount of taxes or what have you, I'm sure Jeff Bezos has many workarounds that
we'll
were
address
built
it.
into the law.
So you are saying the government should create a mechanism by which Jeff Bezos must relinquish control of his company, right?
Not his company.
Do you know what equity is?
No.
Do you know what equity is?
Yes, but
Okay,
I'm not
stop,
saying
stop,
that. But now you're gish galloping.
No, I'm not.
About something specific. Let's get back to the point.
Do you know what
I
equity
don't
is?
think he should have to sell equity of his Amazon company. He could figure out ways of paying taxes in a different form. So, I'm not on his net worth,
which is his equity in Amazon,
which is tied up in Amazon stock,
which is
in part,
and the stock is his ownership of the company. Okay, let's slow down. I'm going to give a few basic points, everybody.
Yes, sir.
The stocks, the shares you hold in a company represent your equity stake and ownership of the company. Tim Pool owns 100% of Timcast Media. The company does have shares; it's a private company, and I hold all of them. If the government said those shares have a value based on the revenue of the company, you have to pay taxes on those shares. That would force me to relinquish control of this company in some direction. That is called the government seizing ownership of the company.
I don't agree with the specific mechanism
you're wrong.
that you're. Oh, all right. Well, there you go. You just think I'm wrong. I think Jeff Bezos doesn't pay enough in taxes, and just like similarly, the top 100 net worth individuals
You're a
in our
socialist.
country. No, I'm not, and that's not the definition of socialism
It is.
at all.
It
What is it?
It doesn't matter what you think you are. You're advocating for the government to seize the ownership of Jeff Bezos.
No, I'm not, and
you
you
are.
don't No, I'm not, and how you're defining it of what I'm saying is a mischaracterization.
Okay, so let's slow down. Jeff Bezos made $2 million in cash, and you think he's not paying enough based on that $2 million? Should he pay $1 million of it?
I think based off, I feel like I'm reiterating myself when we're just going in circles, Tim, frankly. I think there's an issue with how we tax high net worth into the highest.
What does that mean?
I don't know how else to make it more clear. The way we tax
what? His income?
high net worth individuals. It goes beyond their income because high net worth individuals don't have an extremely high income. They have their money in
Elaad, I have
assets.
a question for you.
Well,
If you didn't eat breakfast yesterday, how would you have felt?
It depends. Some days I don't have breakfast and I'm not feeling hungry.
Do you not
after.
understand the concept of taxing means a requirement for an individual to pay cash, but then you say net worth, which is imaginary, where there is no cash? What do you not understand? I am asking you these questions to try and figure out what you're trying to express.
The issue is these people, these high net worth individuals on purpose have low incomes as a workaround for our laws in our
I
country.
got it. Now pause. Now, if their income is low, how do they pay a tax?
We need to find a mechanism in which we find a way to tax people who are the highest net worth individuals who purposefully use these
I'm trying.
loopholes.
Okay, slow down. So, okay,
Yes.
okay.
Who purposefully
Tax what? Their net worth?
We need to find a mechanism in which to
Like,
tax them
tax
differently.
what?
A part of their value.
A part of their net worth.
Yes.
Okay, Jeff Bezos' net worth, just hold on,
Sure.
is his ownership stake in Amazon.
Uh-huh.
That's it.
Sure.
So if someone
not
said,
that's it, but sure. He has
that's
more
his,
than just
that's
Amazon.
majority of his wealth, almost all of it.
Sure. He keeps it
Okay.
fucked up in that.
Taxing would require him to pay cash, which he does not have, for owning part of Amazon.
Yes.
So how will he acquire the cash?
We need to figure out a mechanism.
Answer the
I'm
question,
not an
you
accountant,
communist.
but here's the issue. If you just lock up all your money in stock and you are
Okay,
a
stop,
highly...
stop,
Wait,
bro,
no,
no,
you
no,
let
no,
me finish
you're-
my point.
No,
If
because you're not making one.
No,
Listen, what I'm
You're missing
what
the
I'm
point
doing
on purpose, Tim. You're not understanding.
Elaad, stop.
No,
Elaad,
you're
Elaad.
purposefully missing the point.
What I am doing is called the Socratic method, where I'm asking you questions to dissect what your argument is. You're going in circles. I am trying to lay out the logical base points of what you are trying to claim so we can understand what you're saying. Jeff Bezos hypothetically is reported he makes $1 million salary with $1 million bonus. That's the official reporting. He has estimated 170-something billion in his equity control of Amazon. This is stock he's not legally allowed to sell based on contractual obligations. You want to
does
tax
sell his stock, but
when he's legally allowed to based on performance issues, meaning the stock reaches a certain value, he can sell a certain amount. That's when he can cash out some of his equity. What you have explained to us is that you want to tax Bezos on what's called unrealized gains. That is, Bezos owns a portion of his company, and that portion of ownership equals an imaginary value. Because that imaginary value is very high, he should have to find a way to acquire cash to pay the government. The only means by which that could be accomplished would be if he sold equity stake in his company. That would mean the government put a requirement for him to relinquish a degree of control of his company. Right?
no, it doesn't have to be, and I'll explain to you why. Because certain stocks have more voting rights than other stocks, so they don't have to make him relinquish specifically stocks that have voting rights in his company. So there are ways around this, and that's why I'm saying there needs to be a mechanism. My larger point here is that there are ultra-wealthy people in our country who do not pay any reasonable, understandable share of tax, even compared to their fellow 1%ers. So the 1% of the 1% ends up paying less than the other 99% in that 1%.
All right, so now let's address-
here's the
so
larger
you made a point.
here.
So let me address
The issue
that.
with how these people are taxed
Okay,
needs to
Elaad,
change, is my
You
point.
said that. Okay, so you are advocating for a tax on unrealized gains. In any capacity, in some way, we don't know how yet.
Yeah.
But somebody who generates imaginary wealth should have to pay the government based on the perception of that wealth.
For the ultra wealthy, once you pass a certain threshold in our country, yeah.
So even though they have no money,
Their
Wait,
net
wait,
worth,
wait,
yes,
wait.
yeah, yes.
so like if you bought a
You think Jeff Bezos has no money? Yes. Okay.
That's not what I said. I think his cash reserves are relatively low relative to his net worth. That's the point. So, for example,
So there's no way
Phil-
for Jeff Bezos to pay more taxes. I guess he's just going to have to stay what he's paying.
no, there is. We could seize his equity.
No, we shouldn't do that. That would make us communist. Jeff Bezos has to be able to pay as much taxes as, people who earn
Pays more.
millions of dollars.
So if someone bought a Spider-Man comic for $1, and then 20 years later, it was worth $10 million because it was a rare Spider-Man comic and it was graded 10, sealed in a box. They now have an imaginary net worth of $10 million. Should we tax them for having that Spider-Man comic?
No.
It's a real question.
No, but I feel like these aren't apples to apples comparisons. I'm trying to talk to you about special cases where we are talking about the modern day robber barons of
That's
our
why
country.
I'm robber baron.
Yeah, all these people.
Okay, dude,
right.
you're a socialist.
No, I'm not.
Robber baron?
These guys.
Kyle Klinsky over here.
Taxing equity in companies? Bro,
I'm not saying we.
you would get along.
I think there's issues
he's
with.
he's not a neocon, he's a new lib.
There's issues with how we tax these guys, and I think it's actually abundantly clear. And I think these arguments.
That's
that
an
you're making are
emotional
crazy.
argument.
What's an emotional argument?
That it's abundantly clear.
No, they pay the top 100 net worth individuals in our country pay less than people who earn millions of
they
dollars
don't.
a year. Yes, they do
No.
because of their tax workarounds.
No, they don't.
Okay.
Elaad, you have literally no idea what you're talking about.
Jeff Bezos used to take a small 100K
He still
salary.
does. He still takes $1 million a year, his salary. That's reported.
Doesn't
It's
he
it's a
not
public-
work in
it's a public,
Amazon still?
Well,
Or was
maybe.
he on the board.
But
So
as
no,
a-
when
as
he
a-
was working as CEO,
was
he was
80,
only
86,
taking
87 a
86,
month.
and he was only paying an income tax on that. And if you don't see an issue, Phil, if you want to, I think it's abundantly clear that somebody with the net worth of Jeff Bezos should be paying more than just his
Why
income tax
should he
on
pay more?
$80,000 a year.
Why?
Because he's one of the richest people in our country. He
No,
shouldn't
no,
be paying.
that's
that is why.
Hold on, wait,
That is why. And I
Stop,
believe
guys. You made a statement of identity, not an argument as to why he should be taxed.
because I believe in a progressive tax rate. Why should people be taxed?
That is a statement. That is not an argument as to why someone should be taxed. Let me tell you an argument, okay? The progressive tax argument is that the wealthier you are, the less money you require for standard living, and the more money you have for capital investment. The reason we tax you at a progressive rate is because you require less money the more money you have. That is the progressive argument. Because a person who makes $80,000 a year can cover their basics. A person who makes $500,000 covers their basics and has extra money for influence power. That is a socialist concept. And I'm not telling you that. I'm saying that is literally one, the progressive tax bracket. I am asking you, for what mechanical reason of law and society should wealthy people be taxed?
What mechanical reason
Yes.
of law?
Why would a government institute a mechanical policy codified in law? Because I can give you reasons. You can't murder people because there's two reasons.
So why should they fundraise taxes? Why
should wealthier people pay more taxes?
Because it's an easier strain on them as it is to people who earn less.
You're repeating
people
what
who
I just said.
earn and people who earn, again, like if you're in the bottom 50% of the tax bracket, you pay almost none of the actual tax revenue. Those people shouldn't be paying income taxes at all.
You agree with the socialist precept I just presented?
I don't think it's a socialist precept.
hold on.
I think higher and progressive taxes and higher taxes does not make one socialist. That's just not
Elaad,
what socialists.
I just explained to you, not that you were a socialist, but the socialist argument is we should tax the wealthy because they have access to wealth and power more than the working class. You then reiterated
I think it's a liberal
that to
argument,
me.
not a socialist argument. A socialist argument is that we should seize the means of production.
That's not a liberal argument. That's the
We should
socialist
make
argument.
a progressive tax rate. No. Liberals say that.
Liberals in the modern colloquial context have socialist tendencies in the mixed economics of the United States. One could make the argument we should tax the wealthy, not just because they are wealthy, but because we want to fund government programs or because we want to remove money from the market that's inflationary due to mass spending or money creation of the U.S. government. Those are mechanical reasons to tax people. One could argue, like Bloomberg, we should tax the poor because poor people make bad decisions. And if we take their means of purchasing from them, we can determine through government programs what they should be able to receive. That's a mechanical argument. I explained to you that the socialist precept was that wealthy people do not need that much money beyond, and after they've already met their needs, which is to each according to their needs, from each according to their capabilities, the extra money levies undue influence, so we prescribe a higher tax rate. Hence, the United States is called a mixed economy, which has some social tendencies and market economies. You then said that right back to me, because it's easier for the rich than it is for the poor, which is the socialist precept. I wasn't calling you a socialist, but you did adopt that argument.
I disagree that it's a socialist precept, but
it literally is.
Well,
from,
not
each,
seizing the-
from each according to their capabilities to each according to
that's
their
a
needs.
slogan. That's not like the Marxists don't.
It's an ethos, simply put, that explains the Marxist ideology of people should not get more than they need, and they should only do what they can. Therefore, the ultra wealthy can be taxed at a higher rate for the purpose of simply it's more than they need. So it's not abject socialism. There are various economies that adopt socialist practices and laissez-faire practices. The United States is a mixed economy in that it is somewhat socialist and somewhat not.
And we have a progressive tax rate now.
That's right. And that is a socialist construct.
Okay, but we're not. We're a mixed economy. Not.
We are a mixed economy.
Okay.
So one could argue that we are becoming socialist, as they often do. Some could argue that we are becoming more laissez-faire. Likely under Donald Trump, we're moving in that direction, which means you end government programs, you end government subsidies, you stop taking from one group to give to another. The United States is a mixed economy, meaning I think the average is that around 45% of all income is taxed. So of all tax brackets, if you are a regular working class person, through property tax, through income tax, through sales tax, excise tax, service tax, etc., road tax, gas tax, you're paying about 45% of your income in taxes. So that's why some argue we're not a totally socialist nation, or we don't lean socialist because we actually lean slightly less because we're taxing at less than half of your income rate. Simply put, taxing the wealthy for the sake of it because they have too much, that is the socialist argument.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to go to the members only call-in show. I can grab some more super chats, but bro, I got to be honest, Elaad, literally, I mean this sincerely.
Just, can you go rapid fire with a handful real quick?
Literally every single one is explaining how you don't understand taxes, law, or business. Some of them are a bit brutal.
Anybody agree?
Mr. Cooper says Elaad has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. He's a lol cow. And yes, we are a socialist country. Okay, laissez-faire economics and economic regimentation, socialism, are mutually exclusive ideas.
Hard to argue with. We're a socialist country.
Convincing reality says laws have to be applied equally.
Okay.
Lurch says Elaad never change. Crazy, cringe, and dumb.
No, stay in the echo chamber.
Jason Dixon says, for the love of God, shut the hell up, Elaad. Move on, Tim. The viewership is dropping. Nobody wants to hear you educate him. We are over it. Well, with all due respect, I do actively monitor viewership during the show, and it is comparable to any other time. And I do know that a lot of people don't like when we get into arguments like that, although many do. And I think it's important to have those conversations. And that's why we have, this is why we have Eclectic Voices on the show, because there are a lot of people who have never heard the argument articulated as to why these taxes should or should not exist or how they function.
Yeah.
That is to say, there are a lot of people out there who genuinely believe that Bezos pays less taxes than the average American, which is a fact statement that is false. There's a lot of people who believe the wealthy aren't paying their quote unquote fair share, which is an opinion emotional argument. Fair share is a meaningless nonsense term. It doesn't mean anything. What is fair share? I don't know. The fact is that the top 1% pay around half of all income taxes or more in this country. And the lowest income earners pay almost none. In order to be a net taxpayer in this country, I think you have to make around like $150,000 to $200,000 a year. So these things are important to understand because we have a country that heavily subsidizes people in a variety of ways, from healthcare benefits to the fire department, police. All of these things are paid for that the average person isn't actually paying back. So when people call for the death of billionaires like Bill Burr, they're basically saying destroy the mechanism by which we actually fund the tax base. And that would be catastrophic for the structures of this government. There are always going to be the top 0.1% of human beings. No matter what laws you make, no matter what you do, they will always find the means to maximize their potential, to maximize control, either because they're naturally charismatic, they have social currency, or hard currency. AOC considers herself to be poor. She says, I don't make that much money. But she is actually, in the full metrics of social economics, one of the wealthiest people in the world, in that with her 10 million followers on X, she could destroy economies, like she did in New York City with Amazon. She was able to snap her fingers and rip $30 billion from New York. She may not have cash, but her social currency is more powerful than anything Bezos can do, or arguably as powerful. We're going to go to that members only show, my friends. So smash the like button. It's going to be on rumble.com/Timcast IRL. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Chloe, do you want to shout anything out?
So I'm on X and Instagram primarily, but I'm also on YouTube. I might also open up a Rumble.
Ooh, good idea.
And my username on all of them is the same. It's Choocole, CHOOO, 3 O's, COLE, or you should be able to look me up by just writing Chloe Cole.
Right on.
I'm Elaad. I'm a journalist here at Timcast. Arguments like those are actually my favorite part of the show. I have a photo here of the kidnapped Kfir Bibas on October 7th. He was a child who was kidnapped by not Hamas, but the average opportunistic Palestinian citizens who also decided to raid Israel. Him, his 2-year-old brother, and mother were all kidnapped and killed while in Hamas captivity. Their bodies are supposed to be returned tomorrow. It's anticipated to be one of the largest funerals in Israel's history. And it speaks to how the issue goes deeper than just Hamas. Not that they will have any role in the future of governing Gaza, but the average Palestinian person, an opportunistic Palestinian person, raided the border. A group of them raided the border. Many of them on October 7th kidnapped Kfir Bibas, his mother, and his brother, and now they're all dead. I'd feel remiss if I didn't mention that. Raymond?
Thank you for that. I agree. My name is Raymond G. Stanley Jr. I work for Timcast, and I blue collar. Once again, we're going to shout out Mr. W. David Lilly Jr., doing Roberto Jr. here, and I'm sure you've seen behind Phil was Mr. Bocus. Chloe, thank you for allowing me to feel emotions. I don't feel emotions very much, but I appreciate that. Phil?
I'm glad I made you feel something.
Right.
I am Phil That Remains on X, where you can subscribe to my page there. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. New record dropped on January 31st. It's called Anti-Fragile. You can take a listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Amazon Music, Amazon Music, YouTube, and Deezer. Don't forget the Left Lanes for Crime. That's it.
We will see you all over at rumble.com/Timcast IRL in about 30 seconds. Thanks for hanging out. Well, because your position is the exact same as Vosh's.
Yeah. On progressive taxes.
On